Lien Shuerong lightly sent out a palm strike, blocking this punch from Ling Han. Their fist and palm didn't truly come into contact. Instead, they were separated by at least 6 meters, and a fierce collision of power had already taken place. The dust on the ground was sent flying, turning into a mushroom cloud. Ling Han felt a powerful power rebound back at him, causing him to involuntarily retreat continuously. On the other hand, Lien Shuerong was standing firmly. This was still inferior to blood transformation tier. Are you trying to defy the heavens? Lien Shuerong couldn't help but exclaim. Am I? Ling Han shook his head and said, I'm considerably inferior to you. Lien Shuerong was speechless for a moment. Brat, could it be that you want to defeat me with the cultivation level of Meridian Opening tier? She shook her head. Do you know what cultivation level I am at? Blood transformation tier, Ling Han said. This wasn't a secret. I am indeed a blood transformation tier cultivator, but blood transformation tier is the same as Meridian Opening tier. It is similarly divided into several minor levels of cultivation level. Lien Shuerong said seriously, blood transformation tier, as the name goes, one has to transform all the blood in one's body. Ordinary blood is red, so after the first change, the blood turns purple. In a fierce battle, one can make the blood boil, and for a short period of time, burst out with twice, or even 3 times his usual power. In the second transformation, the purple blood turns black, and the blood is so strong that it solidifies and forms pillars. This is called the condensed blood pillar. In the third change, the black blood turns silver, and blood can condense into the appearance of a fierce beast from the ancient age. It would soar out and could kill with its aura alone. This is called the condensed blood beast. In the fourth transformation, the silver blood turns gold, and blood can be condensed into a weapon, and the murderous aura becomes even stronger. In the fifth transformation, golden blood turns into crystalline color, and blood condenses into a human form that has endless uses. Lien Shuerong spoke of the 5 levels of the blood transformation tier, paused, and said, I am now in the third transformation, condensed blood beast. As she spoke, silver-colored blood rose from her body, turning into a 3-legged bird, endless viciousness surging out from it. Even with Ling Han's temperament, he still faltered. This 3-legged bird made him feel a strong pressure. Even if it was just staring at him like that, it was enough to greatly reduce his strength. Condensed blood beast, this was a suppression of cultivation level. I'm already standing at the 3rd level of the blood transformation tier, and you actually want to fight me to a tie. Should I say that your courage is commendable? Or should I say that you're stupid? Lien Shuerong shook her head. Ling Han chuckled upon seeing this. The gulf between them was far too great. Then how far is the gap between me and the 1st level of the blood transformation tier? He asked. Lien Shuerong pondered for a moment, then said, in the 1st level of the blood transformation tier, power tier starts from 100,000 kilograms, and your current power has definitely reached 100,000 kilograms. It is not the slightest bit inferior to a newly advanced blood transformation tier. In fact, it has even surpassed it. However, once you have advanced into the blood transformation tier, one would be able to boil his blood and burst out with 2 to 3 times the usual power. This is an advantage that you cannot hope to attain. Ling Han nodded. Even if he only had 100,000 kilograms of strength, if he could increase it by 2 to 3 times, reaching 200,000 kilograms or even 300,000 kilograms of strength, just how terrifying would that be? This wasn't the overlapping of power. Just like a 7 meridians, even if he could overlap 10 layers of power, would he be able to withstand a punch from a 10 meridians? This was the advantage in terms of cultivation level. In essence, this was a crushing advantage. However, boiling blood also has a time limit, no more than 10 minutes. Then, it would need at least 5 to 6 hours to calm down, and those who need longer may even need a day, depending on the individual. Lien Shuerong said, so if you can avoid these 10 minutes or so of a power burst, then it would not be difficult for you to match or even defeat a blood transformation tier. Ling Han nodded. Unless his power could be further increased, Would he be able to withstand the explosive power of 200,000 kilograms or even 300,000 kilograms? He would only be crushed into dust. No one had made it a rule that if one defeated an enemy, they had to suppress them head-on. Using one's strengths and avoiding one's weaknesses was the way to go. How exactly do you cultivate? Lien Shuerong was curious. I know that a great many prodigies can break through the limit of 50,000 kilograms of strength at the peak of 12 meridians, but even Tuoba Tianhuang only seems to have about 75,000 kilograms of strength. Compared to you, she shook her head. This gap was really too obvious. Ling Han's expression became solemn. He really could not underestimate the people of this world. Tuoba Tianhuang could be called the strongest of the younger generation, and was even acclaimed as an extraordinary prodigy that would only appear once every 100 years. He was indeed very awesome. He chuckled. I don't know either. I'm just cultivating like usual. Regarding the matter of the extraordinary 8 meridians, he definitely couldn't tell anyone. Lien Shuerong didn't think about this either. She only thought that Ling Han was born with extraordinary talent, and the pressure-bearing ability of his meridians far surpassed that of ordinary people. He could allow power to surge out at a terrifying speed, and his explosive power was astonishing. This was something that others could not envy, no matter what. By the looks of it, you really might be able to get the first place in this martial arts competition, she said. Then her expression became very strange. Previously, when Ling Han found out about the martial arts tournament, he had asked what the prize for the first place was. At the time, she had thought that Ling Han was dreaming, but now that she thought about it, could it be that this guy had long since known that his strength could improve so rapidly? Or was it that this guy was too shameless and had soaring self-confidence? Go, fight for first place and also make our Xianxia banner proud. The day after tomorrow, I will bring people to cheer you on. Lien Shuerong waved her hand. Ling Han hurriedly left. He was really afraid that Lien Shuerong would cancel his leave and make him return to the army from tomorrow onwards. After he left the base camp, he did not directly return to the city. Instead, he began to practice in a desolate neighborhood. He wanted to know his maximum battle prowess. The limit of power he could release was 9 meters. This didn't increase by much. Previously, it was already 6 meters. He didn't expect his power to increase so much, but the distance didn't increase by much. Additionally, in the case of overlapping layers of power, it was 15 layers. This was only under normal circumstances. If he channeled the brother monkey cultivation technique, he could attain 20 layers. Even if it's a blood transformation tier cultivator whose blood is boiling, as long as I avoid a head-on confrontation and deliver 20 layers of power, I don't believe that there is anyone I won't be able to defeat, Ling Han murmured. His battle prowess limit was equivalent to 20 blood transformation tier first change cultivators attacking at the same time. Who at the same cultivation level could block that? He returned to his quarters and began to anticipate what kind of rewards he would obtain in the martial arts tournament that would be held 2 days later. A day later, he received an invitation, which was sent out by the city lord's residence. As it turned out, the day after tomorrow was the 18th birthday of the young miss of the city lord residence. Since I've received an invitation, what kind of birthday gift should I prepare? Ling Han rubbed his chin. He couldn't go empty-handed, right? I'll take a look at pill recipes. What women care about the most is naturally looks, especially beautiful women. The lifespan of the people in this world is extremely short, so their appearances also age easily. In that case, the effects should be quite good if I give you an everlasting youth pill. All right, let's go to the online platform and see if there are any pill recipes like this. Ling Han immediately did as he said. He opened the optical computer and began searching. Everlasting youth pill was the favorite of women, especially beautiful women. Who didn't want to preserve their most beautiful side forever? Ling Han soon saw the information about Everlasting Youth Pill on the trading platform. Of course, it wasn't a completed pill, but an incomplete recipe. In the last era of civilization, there was indeed something like the Everlasting Youth Pill. However, with the destruction of this civilization, the recipe for the Everlasting Youth Pill had also been destroyed, and had not been completely passed on to this day. On this pill recipe, There was only an introduction to the effects of everlasting youth pill, as well as the color and smell of the completed pill, and the method of assessing its quality. As for the specific ingredients needed, a corner of the page was missing. There wasn't much missing. At most, there were 4 medicinal ingredients missing. However, no matter how the alchemists of the modern era studied it, they were still unable to complete it. Fuck! Even the incomplete recipe has to be sold for 10,000 Dark North coins. Do you really think money comes from the wind? Ling Han looked at the transaction information and couldn't help but grit his teeth. However, only one person had made the deal, so Ling Han could only accept it and bid on the pill recipe. What could be seen on this page was only the introduction to everlasting youth pill's functions, and below it were a great many messages, most of which were left by females, begging some grandmaster to repair this pill recipe for the benefit of the world. After Ling Han paid, it wasn't long before the complete pill recipe appeared before him. He scanned the ingredients, then went to find out the specific uses of each ingredient. Then he began to ponder. In the Genesis world, everlasting youth pills also existed, so what Ling Han had to do was very simple. He had to make a comparison between the two, and from there, find what was on the missing corner of the page. After only half a day, Ling Han murmured, "I have 3 options, but I don't know which one is the most correct." He immediately went to buy medicinal ingredients, then began to concoct alchemical pills. The everlasting youth pill had very low requirements for formations, so it was very easily matched. Ling Han released his spiritual power and activated the formations. Then, his spiritual power transformed into a hand that threw one medicinal ingredient after another into the formations. Using his spiritual power to grab medicinal ingredients would further decrease the impurities. No matter what, his hands would eventually be stained with something. But in the Genesis world, Ling Han's strength was too strong, so his hands naturally wouldn't be touched by the slightest bit of dust, so it didn't matter. Thus, Ling Han was gradually developing the habit of using his spiritual power to grab medicinal ingredients now. This was only an elementary-level alchemical pill, and was very easy to concoct. 2 hours later, Ling Han succeeded with a single attempt. Let's try the other 2 options. He also concocted the everlasting youth pill that corresponded to the other 2 options, totaling 14 pills. He analyzed the 3 types of everlasting youth pills one by one. With the Alchemy Emperor's strength, he immediately made a judgment. The everlasting youth pill that he refined from the second method would have the best effects. The effects of the other 2 types are about 3 years, but this one is 5 years. Furthermore, it can also make one's skin glow. Ling Han nodded, and resolutely threw away the inferior goods. How could the Alchemy Emperor sell inferior goods? This should also be able to sell for a high price. I'll go find Mo Guahao and give him the pill recipe as well. I'll take a direct share of the profits, which will save me some energy. Otherwise, with more and more alchemical pills that I have to refine, how will I be able to spare the time to concoct this? It doesn't matter if I earn less. The fundamental purpose of my alchemy isn't for money, but to increase my strength and make preparations for Luanxing and the others after they come out. Ling Han made a trip to Mercy Medicine Hall. It was really coincidental. He had just arrived at the entrance when he saw Zhong Yangbi walk out from within. The other party also discovered him at the same time, and his eyes immediately became fierce, as if he wanted nothing more than to devour him. Ling Han! He forced out through gritted teeth. Ling Han acted as if he had not heard anything. He entered into the pharmacy and directly went up to the second floor. Mo Guahao had long since instructed the staff that Ling Han could come and go freely here. He was ostentatiously ignored. Zhong Yangbi clenched his fists, filled with fury. He really couldn't figure out why his master would be so polite to the deputy captain of Shenqing Banner. Wasn't it because that he was just a little better at fighting? But no matter how good he was at fighting, how could he compare to Tuoba Tianhuang? There's no way I'm going to swallow this, he thought. How could Ling Han possibly care? He went up to the second floor and entered Mo Guahao's study. Mo Guahao just happened to be drinking tea after going through his accounts. Young friend Ling, how come you have the time to come and play today? Mo Guahao asked smilingly. He knew that Ling Han was an alchemy mania. Otherwise, there was absolutely no way he could have concocted 900 meridian exploration pills in a single week. He was practically like a maniac. Speaking of which, he still didn't understand how Ling Han had managed to concoct so many meridian exploration pills. This was because even if he had a 100% success rate and concocted them 24 hours a day, there was still far from enough time. Ling Han took out a bottle of alchemical pills and placed it on the table. He said, "This is everlasting youth pill." Pooh! The pitiful Mo Guahao had just taken a sip of tea, yet all of a sudden spluttered out, causing him to cough endlessly. Was this for real? Young friend, you are really going to defy the heavens. He hurriedly grabbed the pill bottle, opened it, and poured out a pill to carefully observe. Regarding Ling Han's natural talent in alchemy, aside from feeling rueful, he had nothing else to say. After a while, Mo Guahao revealed a shocked expression and said, "This is indeed everlasting youth pill. It completely matches the description on the pill recipe. This smell, this color, and..." He pinched a bit, then nodded. "And this smell after ingesting it, there is a kind of vitality factor." He was even more stunned. There is actually a sliver of whitening effect. This wasn't just the everlasting youth pill, it was practically the whitening everlasting youth pill. Young friend. His face was filled with excitement. The modifications to the Meridian Exploration pill and the Mystical Power pill benefits the nation and the people, enough to allow your name to be remembered for 100 lifetimes. However, the completion of the Everlasting Youth pill can truly bring you mountains of gold and silver. Oh, does the Everlasting Youth pill have such great effects? Ling Han asked with a smile. This is not a question of whether one's abilities would improve or not, but rather a question of how much a woman would be willing to pay for this item. Mo Guahao was extremely rueful. Though the main force in this world for making money is men, the main force for spending money is women. And having one's youth last forever is every woman's dream. For the sake of your dream, how much are you willing to pay? He countered Ling Han's question. To the point of bankruptcy, Ling Han said. He was speaking the truth. Just look, he had spent more than 10 million without batting an eyelid. Wasn't it all for the sake of speeding up his cultivation? That's right, Mo Guahao said with a smile. Thus, even if everlasting youth pills are sold for 100,000 each, I guarantee that the supply will not be able to meet the demand. No matter how large the quantity, there is no need to worry about not being able to sell. Ling Han nodded and said, I want to gift this pill recipe to you. In the future, I'll take 10% off the profit of every everlasting youth pill that you sell. Hiss! Mo Guahao looked at Ling Han in shock. He had just analyzed with Ling Han how popular everlasting youth pill would be, but in the next turn, Ling Han was willing to part with the pill recipe and only take 10% of the profits. A good person? No, this was so good that he had practically become an idiot. Young friend, are you really willing to give the pill recipe to me? Even with Mo Guahao's personality, he still couldn't control himself, his heart trembling madly. Ling Han was nonchalant. This kind of low-level alchemical pill could actually only earn some money from those at the lower ranks to satisfy his present cultivation needs. You see, if he really reached the blood transformation tier, or even a higher cultivation level, could money still buy the ingredients he needed? Impossible. When one had reached a certain height, it would definitely be an item exchange, a treasure exchanged for another treasure. Not only the everlasting youth pill, but also the modified version of the mystical power pill and the meridian exploration pill. The conditions are all the same, Ling Han said. Mo Guahao was already numb with shock. No, he corrected his previous assessment of Ling Han. This was not a good person, nor was he an idiot, but rather a saint. That's right, he was definitely a saint. He was filled with integrity. No, 10% is really too little, at least 50%. After Mo Guahao came back to his senses, he hurriedly said with a serious expression. He only had to obtain any one pill recipe, and he would have the confidence to become extremely wealthy. Gathering all 3 pill recipes, the seat that belonged to the richest man of the Dark North Nation would be beckoning at him. You will be in charge of skill, cost, and manpower. I have only offered the pill recipe, so 10% is enough. Ling Han said with a smile. No, 40%. Then 40%. Mo Guahao insisted. If outsiders saw this, they would definitely call them two idiots. Wasn't it? There was actually someone who was willing to sacrifice their profits for nothing. What else could it be but an idiot? In the end, after much persuasion, Mo Guahao finally managed to convince Ling Han to accept the proposal of 30% share of the profits, which made him sigh in relief. It wasn't that he didn't want to earn money, but that Ling Han had too much room for development. In future, he would definitely become a big shot in alchemy. At that time, if word got out that he had taken advantage of Ling Han, then everyone would be able to drown him to death just by spitting at him. Being a merchant was naturally beneficial, but one's heart couldn't be black. Ling Han gave the 3 pill recipes to Mo Guahao and told him to immediately advertise the everlasting youth pill. However, the actual sale date was set for next month. Although Mo Guahao didn't understand, in his heart, Ling Han had already leaped to the level of a god, so he naturally agreed. Regarding Ling Han, he was completely impressed. Even though he was a middle-level alchemist and was superior to Ling Han unknowingly, he had already placed himself in a lower position. For some people, prodigious talent overflowed and could not be measured by age. Ling Han returned in satisfaction. Now, he didn't have to spend time on these 3 types of alchemical pills. Instead, he could study more profound pill recipes. Unfortunately, his spiritual power was still not up to standard, and he was unable to construct the middle-level formations. He was still unable to set up that killing formation. In fact, he was not even able to create a formation foundation. Huan Shui, how's your cultivation going? Ling Han called his little handmaiden over. She had also gotten some benefits from the rich man's formation previously. Young master, Huan Shui is now in 8 meridians. The little female attendant said excitedly. All right, try to reach 12 meridians as soon as possible. Ling Han nodded. Huan Shui will definitely work hard. The little female attendant clenched her fists tightly, filled with motivation. She had a wish, and that was to obtain powerful strength, so that she could be by Ling Han's side. Then, she would be able to stay by Ling Han's side for the rest of her life. Otherwise, she would always worry that she would be abandoned one day. The little handmaiden continued to cultivate with the spirit-gathering formation, while Ling Han sensed the 3rd extraordinary meridian. Every minute of cultivation time was precious. However, the more meridians that were opened, the more difficult it would be to take another step further. By midnight, Ling Han still did not succeed, so he could only give up and go to bed. Pong! Suddenly, a light sound woke Ling Han up. He raised his upper body, and his spiritual power surged. It had already surged into the courtyard, and clearly sensed the 2 figures. It was one of them who had shot out a punch, breaking through the psychedelic formation in the courtyard. Terrifying blood surged all over his body, and he could sense it very clearly. Being able to forcibly break through this psychedelic formation with brute force only meant one thing. This person was a blood transformation tier cultivator, and added with his boiling blood, there was no need to doubt it at all. These 2 people were masked in black robes, and held swords that shone brightly in their hands, exuding a sinister air. Assassins. Ling Han immediately thought. Previously, 2 had come, and in the end, 1 had been killed by the little female attendant, scaring the other away. He had not thought that so long had passed, and the latter would make a comeback. This time, an elite of the blood transformation tier had been mobilized. Head-on confrontation, or retreat. Ling Han only had a single thought before deciding to face this attack head-on. Pong, he directly broke open the window and stood in the courtyard. Blood surged. This was only the 1st cultivation level of a blood transformation tier elite, so he wasn't afraid of a battle. If it was a condensed blood pillar or even condensed blood beast, he would definitely run away immediately with his little female attendant. Such good senses, a black-robed man said. He chuckled coldly. However, in the end, you are only a meridian opening tier elite. Old Su, you stand guard. If the girl comes out, kill her, and I will deal with this brat. All right. The other black-robed man nodded. Their mission was very simple, and that was to kill Ling Han. As for Huan Shui, as long as it did not affect them, they would not kill her. That was because they would be collecting money if they killed someone. How could they kill someone for nothing if they were not going to be paid for it? Ling Han smiled calmly. Who sent you? You're already close to death. So what's the point of asking so many questions? The assassin in black looked at Ling Han balefully. All right, if you must know, my name is Xianxia. I'm Li Si, the other man in black said with a chuckle. Ling Han shook his head and said, I'll inscribe these two names on your tombstones. Die! Xianxia charged over, his sword sweeping out like a rainbow. Ling Han clenched his hand into a fist and punched out. Pong! With the release of his power, Ling Han was unafraid of the sharpness of his weapon. With a loud bang, Ling Han's figure retreated, but Xianxia also took a few steps back, his boiling blood wavering. What? Li Si saw this, and couldn't help but look shocked. Ling Han was clearly only a Meridian Opening Tier Elite, so how could he rival a Blood Transformation Tier Elite? Though they were not the best of the Blood Transformation Tier Elites, there were only a total of 7 Blood Transformation Tier Assassins from Hell. Under the suppression of a major cultivation level in terms of power, Ling Han only had a slight disadvantage. Hiss! Xianxia was also stunned. Fuck, he had been screwed over by the intelligence again. Previously, it was said that Ling Han only possessed 10 meridians. In the end, the organization sent out 2 silverplate assassins with 12 meridians, yet they were killed and defeated by a woman. They only managed to escape after using a rare treasure. Now, they sent out 2 elites of first change blood transformation tier, and in the end, a man ran out and his strength was unbelievable. Could it be that the assassination mission was just a foil, and the purpose was to screw over their Hell organization? Again, Xianxia made a comeback, his sword soaring into the sky. After exchanging a blow, Ling Han was already confident. He laughed loudly and charged towards Xianxia. Pong! 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 The two of them exchanged blows. Though Ling Han's power was slightly inferior, it wasn't by much. They exchanged blows. Li Si was completely speechless. This was too ridiculous. Young master. The little female attendant rubbed her eyes as she walked out. She had been cultivating today, so she was sleeping very soundly. Now she was still a little dazed. However, when she saw the ongoing battle in the courtyard, she immediately came back to her senses. There's no need to be nervous. Just see how your young master will show his might, Ling Han said in a clear voice, appearing to be filled with confidence. The little female attendant immediately calmed down. She was filled with confidence in Ling Han. Arrogance. Xianxia also calmed down. It was indeed inconceivable that a Meridian Opening Tier cultivator would possess such powerful strength. However, no matter what, that was only a Meridian Opening Tier cultivator, and could not possibly possess the ability of a Blood Transformation Tier cultivator. I'll let you see the true strength of a Blood Transformation Tier Elite. With a battle cry, all the blood in his body surged, wrapping around the sword's blade, causing the originally blazing white sword's blade to become dark red, as if it was dripping blood. Shua, the sword slashed over. The blade of the sword actually split apart Ling Han's force, as if it was unhindered. Ling Han was astonished. After being boosted with blood, it actually had such an effect. This is a crushing advantage in terms of quality of mystical power, brat. Xianxia smirked coldly. His sword drew closer and closer, its cold light dazzling. Is that so? Ling Han didn't hold back any longer. He channeled the demonic monkey fists. Instantly, his battle prowess soared. The demonic monkey fists was extremely crafty and agile, yet it didn't lose its domineering aura. He was like the guardian deity monkey from the ancient times, capable of killing even true dragons. Most importantly, after channeling the demonic monkey fists, Ling Han's power could be stacked up to 15 layers. He didn't channel the 15 overlapping layers of power all at once. Instead, he shot out 10 overlapping layers of power. However, 10 overlapping layers of power was also incredibly terrifying. It was equivalent to 10 Ling Hans attacking at the same time. If one was hit even once, that would be fatal. Boom, he shot out a punch. Sound waves overlapped, turning into a fist that was visible to the naked eye that blasted towards Xianxia. Shatter! Xianxia's sword swept out, and this fist was immediately sliced open, but it was all right. The two halves of the fist still shot towards him, and their might did not decrease by much. What? Xianxia was stunned. With this strike from him, with the suppression of the blood transformation tier, he actually did not manage to crumble Ling Han's attack. Just how solid was the power of this punch? He did not dare take it head-on and hurriedly dodged. Pong! This punch missed its target and landed on the wall behind him, immediately creating a large hole soundlessly. Xianxia and Li Si inhaled sharply at the same time. How powerful had this punch been to be able to create such a large hole in a wall without causing the slightest bit of commotion? How troublesome, Xianxia said. I'm going to use my ultimate move. Yes, Li Si nodded. Blood transformation tier elite's strongest trait was their ability to boil their blood, thereby increasing their power by twofold or even threefold in a short amount of time. Under the suppression of such overwhelming power, who could resist? Xianxia let out a soft roar. Boom! A cloud of blood exploded from his body, and his eyes also became blood-red. His aura instantly soared to a new height. He abandoned even his sword and tossed it aside. His hands formed into claws, as if he was a wolf that had gone mad. Ling Han's expression became serious. Under the boiling of his blood, a blood transformation tier cultivator could increase his power by 2 to 3 times. This was extremely terrifying and could completely crush him. However, come at me. Die, young man. Xianxia charged over. In this instant, his speed surpassed sound, and only the movement of his mouth could be seen. Only when the claw arrived did the sound travel over. Ling Han didn't take it head-on. At least 10 minutes was Xianxia's explosive period, so he definitely couldn't face it head-on. He slid towards the side, but when he shot out a punch, the power of 15 layers stacked together. Mere tricks. Xianxia smirked coldly and shot out a grab. Pong! The force of Ling Han's punch was immediately shattered. 15 overlapping layers of power was also useless. Ling Han gritted his teeth. This blood transformation tier elite that was in a state of berserk was truly a freak. Die! 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 Xianxia attacked repeatedly. Ling Han dodged, but he was definitely not just taking a beating. He was also taking advantage of the openings to deliver a punch. Even if it was only 3 or 4 overlapping layers of power, Xianxia would still have to respond. He could only dodge or shatter the attacks and definitely could not take it head-on. Otherwise, he would also be in deep trouble. The more Xianxia fought, the more anxious he became. 5 minutes had already passed, and he actually still hadn't managed to take Ling Han down. It should be known that he could only burst for 10 minutes, and by then, his battle prowess would return to normal. To say nothing of killing Ling Han, it was even possible that the latter would turn the tables around and win. Old Su, help! He called out to Li Si. Li Si glanced at Huan Shui. She shouldn't be as freakish as Ling Han, right? However, since the other party did not make a move, he would not waste his energy either. He immediately boiled his blood. Boom, his power soared explosively. Xiao, he charged out, his speed even faster than sound, and shot out a punch at Ling Han. Under such explosive power, ordinary weapons were only a burden to them. Thus, the two assassins gave up on using weapons and instead used their hands. This was a part of his body, so it was naturally the most handy. Their current strength was as high as 250,000 kilograms or so. As long as he was hit once, it was guaranteed that Ling Han's legs would be broken, his arms would be broken, and his chest would directly explode. Ling Han's situation instantly became difficult. His speed was actually inferior to Xianxia and Li Si. Previously, he had been able to dodge repeatedly because he had eyes that had surpassed his cultivation level. Before Xianxia had even pounced over, he could already determine the course of his attack. Thus, he had made preparations in advance. In this way, he would be able to compensate for the fact that his speed was inferior. But now, 2 great blood transformation tier elites, and furthermore, their blood was boiling, increasing their power by 2 to 3 times. Each of them possessed speed that surpassed sound, and their power was strong enough to insta-kill Ling Han in a single strike. How terrifying was this kind of threat? Ling Han's vitality couldn't help but increase to the extreme. His brain was channeling at an extremely high speed, capturing every move of the two of them. Then, he would make his calculations and determine the course of attack of the two of them. From there, he would be able to dodge in advance and turn the situation around. At the same time, he was also throwing punches, which affected the two assassins, buying himself a sliver of time to catch his breath. The movements of the three of them were extremely fast, and every gust of wind that was shot out caused massive damage to this room. Very soon, the whole courtyard had been turned into ruins. This place was extremely remote, and there were only other people living very far away. Thus, the commotion caused by the demolition of the house did not attract the attention of the neighbors. Beads of sweat dripped down Ling Han's forehead like rain. He was extremely tense. Even though he hadn't thrown many punches and had been dodging all this while, he couldn't make the slightest mistake now. Otherwise, he would die. Under this burden and pressure, Ling Han felt like he was walking on thin ice every second, on the verge of collapse. However, he persevered. Ling Han's incredible luck was most likely part of the reason for this. Otherwise, it was always possible for people to make mistakes. If they made a mistake, they would be condemned for all eternity. 5 minutes passed, and Xianxia's power was the first to fall. The boiling of his blood had already ended. Once Xianxia's burst period ended, Ling Han's pressure instantly decreased drastically. Although he was still being attacked by 2 blood transformation tier elites at the same time, one of them was already at the same battle prowess as him. In fact, he was even slightly inferior to him. This was because after he channeled the demonic monkey fists, the power of his attacks stacked up to 15 times. This gave Xianxia a huge headache, and he similarly didn't dare to face these attacks head-on. Right now, Ling Han didn't dare to face Li Si's attacks head-on. Meanwhile, Xianxia didn't dare to face Ling Han's attacks head-on. The scene was strange. Ling Han was hiding from Li Si, while Xianxia was avoiding Ling Han, as if they were playing hide and seek. The more Ling Han fought, the more confident he became. He had already resolved a threat, so as long as he delayed for another 5 minutes, Li Si's explosive period would also end. At that time, it would be his turn to show his might. Another 2 minutes later, the expressions of the 2 assassins changed drastically. If this continued, it was possible that they would die here today. This 12 meridians was practically a monster. No, they had to retreat. This monster had to be dealt with by someone stronger from the organization. Let's go! The 2 of them set off at the same time, dashing quickly. Ling Han chased after him, but did not dare to get too close, because Li Si was still in a burst of power. If the latter was using the retreat as a trap for him, and took the chance to deliver a fatal strike on him, then wouldn't he die too unjustly? Furthermore, the speed of the 2 of them was superior to his, and after a few leaps, he was left far behind. He couldn't catch up. Ling Han stopped, and frowned slightly. Looks like if he did not get rid of Yan Jun and Yang Ziqing, there would still be an endless stream of such assassins. This time, it was a first change blood transformation tier, and in future it would be second change, third change, and so on. Would his advancement always be able to keep up? Furthermore, this kind of passive beating was also not in line with Ling Han's personality. The house had already been destroyed, so they naturally couldn't stay any longer. Ling Han brought his little maid with him and found a hotel to stay in. At first, they thought that they were a couple, and booked a single room for them without even asking, causing Huan Xue's pretty face to flush red. Ling Han naturally asked for 2 rooms. He didn't lack money now. Even if it was 200 Dark North coins for a night, he wouldn't mind. On the second day, he first went to the Mercy Medicine Hall to prevent them from thinking that something had happened to him if they couldn't find him. Then, he called Pan Hu to the side and asked about the assassin. If we're talking about assassin organizations, it's definitely hell, Pan Hu said. It's said that their success rate is around 90%. There's practically no one they can't kill. Young Master Han? Who do you dislike and want to get rid of? Ling Han smacked the back of Pan Hu's head and said, Do you think everyone is like you? Pan Hu smiled sheepishly, thinking, "You asked about an assassin organization. So could it be that you were just curious? Hell organization?" After Ling Han returned, he used the optical computer to investigate the situation of this organization. Sure enough, it was as Pan Hu had said. This organization was well known. Though it belonged to the category of being severely repressed by the Dark North Nation, it had not been eliminated until now because it was good at concealing the identities of its members. This organization claimed that there was no target that could not be killed. The most resounding battle merit was the assassination of a city lord, an elite of extreme bone tier. Meridian opening, blood transformation, extreme bone. Extreme bone tier were the third level of martial arts. There's no need for an elite of the extreme bone tier to move. It only has to be a second change blood transformation tier, and I won't be able to match him, Ling Han muttered. Hence, if the assassins from hell made a comeback, he would not be able to stop them. Should I also contact this organization and kill Yen Jun? Ling Han thought. In any case, what he lacked the least now was money. The problem was, how was he supposed to contact the people from hell? This was a target that had been severely repressed by the Dark North Nation. So how could he possibly leave a message on the net so openly and boldly? Forget it, I'll move to Shenqing Banner in a few days. I don't believe that they would dare to even charge into the army camp. Ling Han thought. There was Lian Shuerong, a third change blood transformation tier, standing guard there. It was only a single day, and the entire Huju city was once again in an uproar. Previously, it was the modified version of the Meridian Exploration pill, which made a great many people who were stuck in their cultivation levels overjoyed. However, this kind of pill had existed before, after all, and it was only the effects that were improved. But this time was different. The everlasting youth pill had suddenly appeared out of nowhere, causing all the noble women and young mistresses to become restless. One could actually retain his youth forever? Although Mo Guahao said that one everlasting youth pill could only maintain one's appearance for 5 years, one could take another 5 years later. One's lifetime was only over 100 years. So how many pills would one need? They would buy it even if the price was astronomical. However, what disappointed these women who were already prepared to empty their purses and fight over it like crazy was the fact that the everlasting youth pill would only be released next month. When Ling Han heard this, he couldn't help but smile faintly. He had kept these people hanging for a month, so once it was sold, they would definitely not be short of money. Additionally, if he held it back for a month, only then would he be able to show the preciousness of the gift he had given to the city lord's beloved daughter. 1 day, 2 days, time passed quietly, and it was the day of the birthday of the city lord's beloved daughter. At night, there were as many guests as clouds. The city lord was naturally the most powerful person in the entire Huju city. His daughter was celebrating her 18th birthday, so who would not give him some face and attend? The members of the older generation naturally couldn't bring themselves to come personally to show their support. However, the young members of the clans all came bearing valuable gifts, and none of the clans would lack such gifts. Of course, if one's class wasn't high enough, they wouldn't even have the chance to deliver gifts. Ling Han had the little female attendant guard the house, while he himself called for a car, and soon arrived at the city lord's residence. "What is your name, sir?" Someone at the door stopped Ling Han, but was very polite. Ling Han replied. That person searched for a while on the optical computer, and hurriedly said, "Esteemed guest, please." The optical computer had a list of people invited to this banquet, and there were also differences in status among the guests. Ling Han belonged to the higher category, so this person in charge was very polite. This wasn't Ling Han's first time entering the city lord's residence, and he had the mentality of an elite in the first place. Thus, his expression was natural and he walked around everywhere. Unlike some people, whose legs trembled slightly after entering, their expressions also seemed extremely cautious, fearing that they would make a mistake and cause a great calamity. He couldn't help but think of how he had also participated in a birthday banquet at the ancient Tao sect, yet he had been framed. Would he encounter something again this time? It should be known that though he had obtained a great many benefits from the divine stone, his luck value was completely unable to offset his ability to attract aggression. Standing in the crowd, it was as if he would emit natural light, and no matter what, it would blind one or two people. Young Master Han, Pan, who squeezed his way over. Mo Guahao had been very popular recently, and as Mo Guahao's nephew, he had naturally received an invitation from the city lord's residence. Ling Han nodded and said, "You're here too, young Master Han. Do you know that this young miss of the city lord's residence was only born when the city lord was 70 years old?" Pan, who whispered into Ling Han's ear, 70 years old? In other words, Feng Zixing was almost 90 years old by now. He really couldn't tell. Previously, Ling Han had seen Feng Zixing once, and looking at Feng Zixing's appearance, he was only in his 40s. Ling Han thought again. Even Ling Xuerong had once said that breaking through to the blood transformation tier would allow one to gain an additional 30 years of lifespan. If breaking through to the extreme bone tier was the same, then Feng Zixing's lifespan would reach 200 years old. In comparison, wasn't 90 years old equivalent to an ordinary 40-year-old? That city lord's young miss seems to be called Feng Ruoxian. TSK, TSK, TSK. It's said that she's really as beautiful as a fairy, Pan, who said with a TSK, his face filled with curiosity and a shred of yearning. It's said that the city lord intends to betroth this young miss to an imperial prince. However, the present emperor hasn't confirmed an heir yet, so the city lord doesn't dare to make a decision. If he bet on the wrong person, that would be terrible. These words couldn't be said irresponsibly. If it was spread to the city lord's ears, even if Feng Zixing beheaded him, probably no one would dare to say anything. Criticizing important ministers was a serious crime. The fact that Pan, who dared to say this to Ling Han, was naturally a way to express his loyalty. Ling Han smiled and said, "I forgot to ask you, what powerful forces exist in the city?" "Young Master Han, you've really asked the right person. I'm very knowledgeable," Pan, who said. "The number one force in our Huju city is naturally the city lord's residence. The city lord, Lord Feng Zixing, the strongest elite of extreme bone tier. It is said that he has already tempered his godly bones 5 times, and has the qualifications to charge towards the next major tier. Additionally, there's also an old butler in the city lord's residence. It's said that he was hunted down by his enemies all those years ago, and fortunately, the city lord came to his rescue, so he willingly became a slave. Now, his cultivation level is also that of extreme bone tier, but it's not clear which level he's on. One level below the city lord's residence, there are the 3 great clans of Zhao, Li, and Wenren. It's been said that they all have elites of extreme bone tier within the clan. Look at the man in white over there. He's one of the well-known figures of the younger generation of the Wenren clan. His name is Wenren Siue. He's only 34 years old this year, yet he's already a first change blood transformation tier. And there, the one in yellow, that is Zhao Zhishu of the Zhao clan, and he had advanced into the blood transformation tier 2 years ago. He is only in his 30s, and has boundless future prospects. And this one, a perverted expression suddenly appeared on Pan Hu's face. He looked at a woman in a milky white dress, but this immediately attracted her attention. She turned around to glance at him, and this scared him so much that he immediately broke out in cold sweat. This was a blood transformation tier who possessed an absolute suppressive ability against normal people. One look from them was enough to scare them out of their wits. That is the most outstanding beauty of the Li clan. Her name is Li Ziyue. Even though she is as beautiful as a celestial maiden, her personality couldn't be any more shrewish, and she is merciless in her attacks. Pan, who shrunk his head and said, "There was a second-generation young master of the Lu clan. Just because he took a second glance at her, and said that this little girl is so beautiful, he was beaten to death." The Lu clan is a noble clan that is only inferior to the 3 great forces. The clan has a blood transformation tier elite on standby, but what use is that? They don't even dare to make a sound, and just let the matter go. Ling Han looked over, only to see Wenren Siue, Zhao Zhishu, and Li Ziyue gathered in a circle. There were many young men and women surrounding the trio, like stars revolving around the moon. Outside this circle, other people were divided into 6 to 7 small circles, and the scale was obviously much smaller. The Lu clan, Yang clan, Qi clan, Hu clan, Long clan, and Tuoba clan. These 6 great clans are beneath the 3 great clans, and their clans have elites of blood transformation tier. It is said that the ancestors of a few clans are presently cultivating in seclusion. Once they come out of the seclusion alive, there would be an additional force of extreme bone tier in the city, Panhu said, pointing at those small circles. These small circles all had a single person as their core, and seemed to be quite hostile towards each other. Occasionally, these small circles would also blend into the larger circles, and offer wine or something of the sort. Which one is Tuoba Tianhuang? Ling Han asked. How could this martial arts maniac possibly come here? Panhu shook his head, and pointed to the left. There, that is Tuoba Gong of the Tuoba clan, Tuoba Tianhuang's older cousin. In the past, he was also known as a prodigy, but following the rise of Tuoba Tianhuang, his glory has been completely overshadowed. Ling Han looked over. It was a young man who looked to be in his mid-20s. He had a dignified appearance, and his aura was extraordinary. However, there was an indescribable repression between his brows. Originally a prodigy, and yet he was suppressed by his own clan brother. This was indeed depressing. Aside from these martial arts noble clans, there are also alchemists and formation masters, Panhu continued. For example, the chairperson of the Formations Association, Gu Tianhe, and the chairperson of the Alchemist Society, Chairperson Zhou. Even if they themselves are only blood transformation tier, they can match the noble clans that are extreme bone tier level. For example, my uncle-in-law, though he is only a 12 meridians, but because he is a middle-level alchemist, he has great prestige even among blood transformation tiers. Especially now, with the introduction of the modified version of the mystical power pill and the meridian exploration pill, even the city lord is praising them endlessly. They can probably be considered to be in the extreme bone tier. Of course, all of this is thanks to young Master Han. In the end, he bootlicked Ling Han. Ling Han chuckled. As long as Feng Zixing knew that everything was done by him, it would be fine. What need was there for so many forces to circle around him all day? They would only disturb his cultivation process. Yen Jun has arrived, Panhu suddenly exclaimed. At the entrance, Yen Jun strode in, followed by Yang Ziqing. The moment Yen Jun entered, he immediately attracted the attention of a great many people. This was the #1 prodigy of formations, and his future accomplishments were immeasurable. Descendants of second-tier clans like the Lu clan and the Qian clan all surrounded him, extending their greetings to Yen Jun. Yen Jun appeared modest and polite, but Ling Han could see the arrogance in his eyes. Obviously, even the clansmen of blood transformation tier-level clans were not valued by him. He was very ambitious. In future, he would go to the imperial capital and make a name for himself, becoming a powerful figure in the Dark North Nation. A flash of killing intent flashed across Ling Han's cold eyes. There was absolutely no way he would allow Yen Jun to go to the imperial capital. He had already hired assassins to target him, and he still wanted to leave without a second thought? Dream on. Young Master Han, do you have some kind of enmity with him? Panhu asked. Though this guy was ignorant and incompetent, he was very good at reading people's expressions. Oh, that's right. Panhu clapped his hands and said in a low voice, "It's said that this guy is currently courting the Banner Lord of Shenqing Banner, and young Master Han, you're also at the Shenqing Banner." I get it. I get it. What the hell do you know? Ling Han swept a glance at Panhu. This guy naturally had misunderstood. However, Yen Jun was currently courting Lien Shuerong? He nodded. He finally understood why Yen Jun was targeting him. At first, he had thought it was baffling, but from the look of things now, the root of the matter lay with Lien Shuerong. However, just because of a little bit of suspicion, added with the matter of groundless accusation, he actually hired someone to commit murder? He was really too petty. Ling Han had always thought that no matter how prodigious a person was, as long as they weren't magnanimous enough, it was destined that they wouldn't have any great future prospects. Young Master Han, what are you doing? Panhu felt slightly panic-stricken because Ling Han was currently taking large strides towards Yen Jun. This was a meeting between rivals in love, filled with jealousy. Were they going to fight on the spot? Pan Hu was astonished. Was Ling Han trying to stir up trouble? This was the manner of the city lord, and it was also Feng Ruoxian's birthday banquet. If he ruined the atmosphere at this time, how could the city lord spare him so easily? Even if you were being favored now, you shouldn't be so unrestrained. No matter what kind of natural talent you possessed in alchemy, you would still need to depend on an elite, and definitely mustn't lose yourself in your conceit. He hurriedly chased after him, but Ling Han's legs were long. Pa. He couldn't catch up at all. Brother Yen. Ling Han stopped right in front of Yen Jun. Yen Jun's eyes involuntarily flashed, and the gaze he directed at Ling Han was filled with fury. The day before yesterday, he had been scolded by the Hell organization again. In fact, they had even threatened to kill him because he had provided false information again. Ling Han wasn't a 10 meridians at all, but rather a 12 meridians. In fact, he even possessed the strength to rival a blood transformation tier. To be honest, Yen Jun did not believe it. Even Tuoba Tianhuang, a supreme prodigy that would only appear once in 100 years, was still unable to match a blood transformation tier. How could Ling Han, a mere deputy captain of Shenqing Banner, be capable of it? However, he couldn't think of any reason for the Hell organization to deceive him. Thus, he believed that there was an elite by Ling Han's side. In fact, it could be Lien Shuerong herself. If a third change elite made a move in secret, it was indeed possible for Ling Han to be saved. With this in mind, he was naturally even more envious. And now, this guy was actually strutting around in front of him? He merely smiled insincerely. In front of the public, especially in a situation like today, he still cared a lot about his image. Ling Han, what are you trying to do? Yang Ziqing stepped out. I'm talking to your master. So why are you interrupting? Ling Han said with a smile. He pressed down on Yang Ziqing's shoulder, gave him a slight push, and Yang Ziqing involuntarily had to step back. Ling Han wrapped an arm around Yen Jun and said, "Come, let's have a chat. Who would want to chat with you?" What was there to chat about? Yen Jun wanted to break free. His accomplishments in formations weren't minor, and he was extremely talented. However, in martial arts he was only average. The cultivation level of 12 meridians wasn't low, but compared with Ling Han, his power was far inferior, so how could he possibly break free? But the others didn't know that. Even though Yen Jun was pushing and shoving him, it was clear that he wanted to refuse yet still allowed him to wrap an arm around him. Otherwise, how could he not be pushed aside? You are a 12 meridians, all right? Everyone knew that. What good friends, not forgetting to show off their affection even when they were here. Pan Hu also came to an abrupt stop, his heart beating wildly. Fuck, young Master Han is indeed fond of ass. Ling Han lowered his voice and said, Yen Jun, no matter how much you struggle, it will only be wasted effort. Banner Lord Lien is not someone that you can ever hope to ascend to be her equal. These words infuriated Yen Jun. This was something that he cared about the most. A target that he had initially thought would be easy to deal with had unexpectedly become a thorn in his side, causing him to sink into a quagmire. He was already extremely frustrated to begin with, and with Ling Han's mockery, he was naturally even more furious. He couldn't help but push forcefully at Ling Han. This was an instinctive reaction, and with how powerful Ling Han was, it should have been futile. However, who would have thought that with this push, Ling Han would actually collapse to the ground? He was taken aback. What was going on? Yen Jun, you are really too ruthless. Ling Han immediately got to his feet, pointed at his nose and said, I was just talking to you nicely, and you actually took the chance to play dirty tricks on me. Shameless. Everyone was astounded. What was going on here? Just a moment ago, the two of them were flirting with one another, showing off their affection in public, and now they suddenly turned hostile? They could clearly see that it was indeed Yen Jun who had taken advantage of Ling Han's carelessness and pushed him onto the ground. How could Yen Jun lost control just like that? He was one of the well-known figures of the younger generation and the most promising formation master. Why didn't he even have this bit of self-restraint? This was Feng Ruoxian's birthday banquet. Aren't you afraid of offending the city lord by doing this? Some things may be tolerable, but some can't be tolerated. Ling Han strode over and gave Yan Jun a slap. As Ling Han made his move, how was Yan Jun supposed to block? Pa! This slap landed crisply on Yan Jun's face. Invigorating. Ling Han thought to himself, who told you to hire assassins to kill me? Fine. I'll beat you up first to vent my anger. Pung pung pung. Under Ling Han's mad thrashing, Yan Jun could only take the beating head-on. How could he possibly dodge them? Now you know how to feel guilt. Why did you push me just now? Ling Han asked as he continued to slap him. Who was feeling guilty? Who was feeling fucking guilty? At this moment, Yan Jun felt an urge to devour Ling Han. He finally understood why Ling Han had collapsed with just a single push from him. This guy had been laying a trap for him. From coming over to say hello, to whispering, to being pushed down, it was all to create an illusion that he had suddenly turned hostile. I didn't expect Yan Jun to be so modest. He didn't even fight back when he was being beaten. It can't be helped. He was the one who started it, and this is the city lord's residence. If he dares to fight back, then once the city lord pursues the matter, he would be the main culprit. If that's the case, Yan Jun really deserved it. If he had known earlier, why would he have pushed him? Who exactly is this person? I don't think I've seen him before. Everyone was discussing animatedly, and when these words reached Yan Jun's ears, he really wanted to shout out loud. Who the fuck deserved this? I was screwed over. However, it was a shame that he didn't even have the chance to open his mouth to speak after being pummeled by Ling Han. He would definitely suffer a heavy punch if he opened his mouth, causing stars to appear in his eyes. He was rendered completely speechless. I'd say, that's about enough, right? A young man spoke up. He was a member of the Qi clan, and his name was Qi Suifeng. He too had the cultivation level of 12 meridians, and was on good terms with Yan Jun. Ling Han stopped, and everyone thought that he was listening to his advice. However, Ling Han glared at Qi Suifeng and said, who do you think you are? I'm teaching my grandson a lesson. So what need is there for you to interfere? Grandson? Pooh, quite a number of people laughed out loud. No matter how the matter today was resolved, Yan Jun would definitely become a joke. Yan Jun felt an even stronger urge to commit murder. In his heart, he was screaming that the Hell organization was useless, and they even boasted that there was no target that they could not kill. Fuck. Ling Han had already evaded 2 assassination attempts, and had even beaten and humiliated their employer. Qi Suifeng's expression turned cold, and he said, you've gone too far. This is Miss Feng's birthday banquet. So how long are you going to continue causing trouble? He leaped out, then stretched out his hand, making a grab at Ling Han's wrist. Ling Han snickered, and merely picked Yan Jun up. With this grab, Qi Suifeng had pressed his hand onto Yan Jun's behind. Yan Jun's whole body instantly froze. Being grabbed by the bottom by a man, what kind of experience was that? Qi Suifeng was also taken aback. How could Ling Han's movements be so fast? He actually did not manage to see clearly how Yan Jun had been dragged up. Otherwise, he would definitely have stopped in time. He humphed and hurriedly retracted his hand. If word got out that he was holding onto a man's behind for a long time, he would really be unable to explain himself. He did not have that kind of sexual inclination. Put him down. Qi Suifeng made a move again. Again, he stretched out his hand in a grabbing motion. Generally speaking, prodigies, or those who believed themselves to be prodigies, all had the same problem, and that was pride. Wherever they had fallen, that is the point where they would pick themselves up. Thus, Qi Suifeng still made a grabbing motion, wanting to grab onto Ling Han's wrist. This was his initial target, and he would definitely not waver from it. Ling Han sighed, and flipped Yan Jun over, pushing him forwards again. It was extremely fast. Everyone only felt their vision blur, and all they saw was a scene that gave them goosebumps. Qi Suifeng's grab just happened to reach between Yan Jun's legs. The thing he was holding was indescribable. Everyone's faces twitched, and the women's faces flushed red with embarrassment. It was too shameful. to actually stage such an obscene scenario in front of everyone. But the hearts of some fujoshis were beating wildly. This was true love indeed. Ah! Yenjun released a terrible scream. The lower half of a man was fragile in the first place, and added with the fact that Qi Suifeng thought that this strike would definitely be able to capture Ling Han, and he had exerted much strength. The grip was so strong that it was possible that his balls would be shattered. This kind of pain in the balls made him cry madly. Qi Suifeng also hurriedly withdrew his hand, and waved his hand repeatedly. Fuck, this time, even if he washed his hand 100 times, he would still have psychological trauma. Ling Han shook his head, and said, "So you actually have this kind of hobby? Then all the more I can't hand Yenjun over to you. Otherwise, who knows how much you would play with him." Hearing his casual nonsense, quite a number of people laughed out loud. They naturally knew that Qi Suifeng definitely did not have that kind of fetish. It was completely caused by Ling Han deliberately. However, it has to be said that this person is very strong. Otherwise, how could he have managed to block Qi Suifeng twice? Hehe. We've really watched a good show today. I'm very curious. Who exactly is that guy? Ling Han paid no further attention to Qi Suifeng. He picked Yenjun up and said, "Why did you push me? If you don't give me an explanation today, I will definitely not give up the matter." Everyone exchanged looks. They all thought that Yenjun was too pitiful. First, he had been thrashed by Ling Han, and then his cock was painfully grabbed by Qi Suifeng. Wasn't that terrible enough? And now, Ling Han was actually interrogating Yenjun as if he was the victim. This would have made Yenjun want to die indeed. Qi Suifeng did not speak anymore. He had grabbed hold of an indescribable part of a man. He had a constipated expression on his face, and was still in the midst of adjusting his emotions. "Nonsense, you were clearly the one who set the trap." Yang Ziqing couldn't hold himself back any longer. He was already tied to Yenjun. Ling Han looked at him coldly and said, "What you mean is that I deliberately allowed Yenjun to push me down, and then took the chance to beat him up? Is that not the case?" Yang Ziqing asked harshly. "Of course not." Ling Han shook his head. "How could I have that kind of strength? Yenjun is a 12 meridians. Who said you didn't? Even the assassins from Hell organization couldn't do anything to you." Yang Ziqing blurted out. Ling Han looked at him with a faint smile and said, "I was being pursued by assassins from Hell organization, but this matter was not witnessed by anyone at all. I have never told anyone else either. So how did you know?" This. Yang Ziqing knew that he had let the cat out of the bag, and involuntarily, his expression changed drastically. He finally knew that he had fallen for Ling Han's trick. "Unless the assassin was hired by you," Ling Han suddenly shouted loudly. Yang Ziqing took 3 steps back. His face was pale, and he was completely rendered speechless. Actually, he very much wanted to explain, but Ling Han's gaze was extraordinarily frightening, making him feel as if he had been bewitched, and he was rendered speechless. Strange. Ling Han hadn't advanced into the blood transformation tier yet, so how could he have such a terrifying murderous aura? What he didn't know was that Ling Han had used spiritual power. With his endless battle experiences, he was able to achieve a similar effect. What? Everyone's expressions changed drastically. Hell was an organization of assassins and was strictly targeted by the nation, though some people did indeed have connections with the Hell organization, and hired them to eliminate some people that they themselves could not kill. However, who would dare to publicly admit it? If one was found to be associated with an assassin's organization, then even if it was an imperial prince, with how wise and mighty the present emperor was, it was guaranteed that he would also be executed. Yang Ziqing had such great nerve and also such stupidity. No, he's talking nonsense. I don't know anyone from Hell organization, and I didn't hire someone to commit murder. Yang Ziqing hurriedly shouted. He had to draw a clear dividing line between himself and Hell organization. Otherwise, he would die a tragic death. Then why don't you explain? How did you know that I was targeted by an assassin from Hell organization? Ling Han said slowly. How would I know that you were being pursued by an assassin from Hell organization? What does that have to do with me? Yang Ziqing said. However, he was completely twisting the facts. Who asked him to have a slip of the tongue, and in front of so many people at that? How was he supposed to explain himself? Ling Han smiled calmly. According to the laws of the Majestic Empire, how should we deal with someone colluding with assassin organizations, hiring people to commit murder? Without waiting for anyone to answer, he continued, he is considered a traitor and should be executed. Ling Han paused, then said, I am Xianxia Banner's deputy captain and have the power to enforce the law. Now, I will execute you. He tossed Yan Jun to one side and strode towards Yang Ziqing. His killing intent blazed, causing one to shiver. He's actually Xianxia Banner's deputy captain? Strange. How can a mere deputy captain come here? Can't you see that he's with Pan Hu? He should have been brought here by Pan Hu. Oh, that's true. Everyone finally knew Ling Han's identity, yet only thought that he was Pan Hu's lackey. When Pan Hu heard this, he gritted his teeth internally. How could he be qualified? Ling Han was an alchemy prodigy, and even the city lord praised him endlessly. You people are blind. He was very pleased with himself, and did not have the slightest intention of explaining. Otherwise, if everyone went to curry Ling Han's favor, wouldn't that be stealing his place? The situation right now was the most ideal, as he could obtain exclusive favor. Save me! Save me! Yang Ziqing was extremely terrified and shouted at his surroundings. However, who would pay attention to him at this moment? Collaborating with an assassin's organization. This crime was too heavy, and no one could bear it. In fact, no noble clan could bear it. Young Master Jun, save me. I'm doing this for you. Yang Ziqing could only place his hopes on Yan Jun. This was his only life-saving straw. What? Everyone was curious. This was a great piece of news. So Yan Jun was also involved? Yan Jun had just gotten his breath back, and when he heard these words, he almost passed out. Who dared to have the slightest relation with an assassin's organization? That was an action of courting death. Absolute nonsense, he said coldly, drawing a clear dividing line. In any case, he didn't leave behind a shred of evidence. The connection with the Hell organization was all done by Yang Ziqing alone. Thus, as long as he didn't leak anything, he wouldn't be dragged into this matter. Yan Jun, you're so ruthless, Yang Ziqing shouted harshly. It was clearly you who was jealous of Ling Han's relationship with Banner Lord Lien, and told me to hire someone to commit murder. Now, you're actually going to deny it. For the sake of his own life, he could only throw caution to the winds. Oh! Everyone released a long exclamation of shock. So that was the case. This completely made sense. Who did not know that Yan Jun was currently courting Lien Shuerong of Xianxia Banner? Thus, it was reasonable for him to be jealous and hire someone to commit murder. And it was completely illegal. Pig! He was really a pig. Yan Jun cursed internally. Though you had a slip of the tongue, as long as you insisted that what you just said was mistaken, then without proof, what could Ling Han do? But now that he had said this, it was equivalent to admitting it. Idiot! How could there be such an idiot? However, what he didn't know was that this kind of second-generation young master had never experienced any setbacks in his life. In such an environment, it was very easy for his willpower to collapse, so how could he expect Yang Ziqing to calm down and think? That was impossible. You are slandering me and making things up out of nothing, Yan Jun said coldly, looking completely righteous. Ling Han looked at Yang Ziqing and said slowly, You said that Yan Jun told you to hire someone to commit murder. Do you have any proof? Evidence? How could there be any proof? Everything was his own doing. Yan Jun had only spoken, while the huge portion of the money had come out of his own pockets. He was really an idiot. He was working for someone else, and still had to suffer for someone else's sake. Yang Ziqing was completely despondent. Only now did he realize why Yan Jun had asked him to do so many things. As it turned out, it was so that if anything happened, he could push him out to take the blame. Yan Jun, you are so ruthless. So ruthless. He cursed through gritted teeth. Since you don't have any evidence, I'll send you on your way, Ling Han said menacingly. As the deputy captain of Xianxia banner, he had the right to kill, as long as the other party really violated the majestic empire's laws with a death penalty. Hee. A young man walked out and said with a smile, "Deputy Captain Ling, right? I am Yang Xiaoqing of the Yang clan. This is the city lord's manor, and furthermore, it is Miss Feng's birthday banquet. It would be very inappropriate to commit murder here. This person is a member of our Yang clan, so allow me to bring him back. I will definitely give you an explanation, Deputy Captain Ling." Yang Ziqing instantly breathed a sigh of relief. As long as he could return to the clan, he definitely wouldn't die. How could the Yang clan allow members of the main clan to be executed in public? Ling Han also smiled. "Little Cheng, the evidence is now conclusive. The suspect has already admitted personally that he hired someone to commit murder. How can someone who hates evil as much as I do ignore it? Don't worry, I have a sense of propriety when killing people. I guarantee that there will be no bloodshed." Fuck, this wasn't a matter of seeing no blood. Furthermore, who did he refer as Little Cheng? Yang Xiaoqing's expression was ice cold. He and Yang Ziqing weren't blood brothers, and their usual relations weren't all that good either. However, if the clansmen of the Yang clan were killed, that would be humiliating everyone in the Yang clan. This absolutely must not happen. "Deputy Captain Ling, don't go too far." He stepped out. "I'm currently enforcing the law. If you dare to stop me, that would be equivalent to committing treason." Ling Han merely glanced at him and said slowly, "Do you want me to kill you as well?" This Yang Xiaoqing couldn't help but feel stifled. This crime was really too serious. If he was really charged with this crime, not just him, even the Yang clan would suffer. "Scram further away." Ling Han's voice turned cold, and he continued to walk towards Yang Ziqing. "Ling Han, do you really want to go against the Yang clan?" Yang Xiaoqing said. He wanted to give it one last shot. "Is your Yang clan intending to oppose His Majesty?" Ling Han threw an even bigger crime against him. Yang Xiaoqing was rendered speechless. In the Dark North Nation, the present emperor was a godlike figure. He established the majestic empire, expelled demonic beasts, spread martial arts, and re-established order, and this was a supreme merit. Everyone respected him from the bottom of their hearts. If word got out that he had disrespected even the emperor, it was guaranteed that he would be chopped to death. "No, no, no!" Yang Ziqing collapsed. He collapsed onto the ground, tears streaming down and snot flowing from his nose. "I don't want to die. I don't want to die. No one wants to die. But the evil deeds you've done are unforgivable," Ling Han said coldly. He naturally didn't have any sympathy. The other party had already hired someone to kill him. He wasn't a saint. He reached over to grab Yang Ziqing. Under this pressure of despair, Yang Ziqing's desire to live exploded. With a flash, he began to flee, and the direction in which he fled was actually towards the depths of the city lord's residence. Everyone faltered for a moment before nodding in agreement. If he ran out, would he be faster than Ling Han? On the other hand, if he ran into the city lord's residence, would Ling Han really dare to pursue him? To say the least, even if Ling Han dared to give chase, as long as Yang Ziqing encountered someone like the city lord, would Ling Han dare to make a move? The city lord was not like Ling Han. He would consider balance and consider the strength of the various clans. A one-sided confession like this could completely be overturned. TSK. He could actually think of so many things in such a short amount of time. Yang Ziqing was really not that stupid. If Yang Ziqing knew about this, he would definitely be confused as well, because how could he have thought of all these? He was completely in a panic. He ran, and the people in front of him all gave way. Firstly, no one wanted to have any relation with him, and secondly, no one wanted to become enemies with the Yang clan. Yang Ziqing had a smooth journey, but a woman suddenly appeared in front of him. She was at most 17 or 18 years old, and she was really delicate and beautiful. Her skin was as fair as milk, and her black hair was so glossy. She was breathtakingly beautiful. If this was any other time, he would definitely curry the favor of the beauty, hoping to win her favor, but now, his mind was filled with thoughts of survival. Thus, he moved aggressively, grabbing out at the girl, wanting to throw her towards Ling Han, so that he would have a chance to escape. "You're seeking death." He had just made his move, when an incredibly cold voice rang out by his ear. Then, there was nothing else. Yang Ziqing died. His neck was gripped by someone, and all the bones in his body were instantly shattered. He was absolutely dead. Sister Ruoxian, Wanren Siue, Zhao Zhishu, and Li Ziyue all greeted the young girl who had just walked out. Then, they bowed to an elder beside her, their expressions incredibly respectful. It was this elder who had killed Yang Ziqing just then. This was Feng Ruoxian? Most of the people here did not recognize Feng Ruoxian, and when they heard Wanren Siue and the others greet her, they finally came to a realization. "Greetings, Miss Feng." Everyone hurriedly paid their greetings. This was the young miss of the city lord's residence. In future, she may become the princess consort, or even the empress. They all wore strange expressions, thinking that Yang Ziqing was truly unlucky, bumping into Feng Ruoxian and even daring to attack. However, who was this old man? He was too decisive and merciless. Wasn't he? He immediately killed him. This made Ling Han feel that it was a pity. He actually wanted to kill Yang Ziqing with his own hands. However, this old man was indescribably powerful at first glance, so it was best not to argue with him. "Greetings, Butler Mu," Wanren Siue and the others said at the same time. Everyone couldn't help but feel apprehensive. Everyone knew that there was an old butler in the city lord's residence. It was said that he had been saved by the city lord when he was being hunted down, so he willingly submitted himself as a slave of the city lord's residence. This was an elite of extreme bone tier. "Greetings, Butler Mu." The others all paid their respects. This was a mighty figure that had to be treated with respect, one of the few elites in the entire Huju city. The old butler didn't pay attention to anyone. He squinted his eyes, looking listless. Feng Ruoxian greeted Wanren Jingyi and the others with a smile, and they eagerly smiled back at the others. She was as gentle as water, and did not have the slightest bit of the arrogance of a princess of the city lord's residence, causing everyone to praise her. She was as beautiful as a fairy, yet did not put on any airs at all, as if she was the child of an ordinary family. She was really likable. Meanwhile, Ling Han shook his head internally. A living person had died in front of her, yet she did not even bat an eyelid. How could this be the reaction that an ordinary person should have? However, in any case, what business was it of his? "What's wrong with him?" Feng Ruoxian pointed at Yang Ziqing and asked. "Sister Ruoxian, let me tell you." Li Ziyue walked over, pulled Feng Ruoxian aside, and began whispering to her. After a while, Feng Ruoxian returned. She looked at Ling Han and said, "Deputy Captain Ling, you did very well." She praised him. Ling Han was astonished. He had forced Yang Ziqing to flee, causing Yang Ziqing to stumble into Feng Ruoxian in a panic. This caused the old butler to intervene and kill Yang Ziqing. No matter what, if someone died at the banquet, the host would definitely be displeased. However, not only was Feng Ruoxian not angry, but she even praised him. This naturally made him feel strange. He nodded at Feng Ruoxian and said, "Apologies. I moved at Miss Feng's birthday banquet and disturbed Miss Feng. Collaborating with an assassin organization is unacceptable under the laws of the nation. Deputy Captain Ling, you don't have to blame yourself." Feng Ruoxian smiled gently, making people feel an indescribable comfort. No wonder Feng Ziqing was so confident, thinking that his daughter would definitely become the beloved consort of some imperial prince. In fact, he even had hopes of her becoming the empress. Whether it was looks, speech, or manners, there was nothing that could be criticized. Feng Ruoxian withdrew her gaze from Ling Han, and after exchanging a few words with the others, announced the beginning of the birthday banquet. Though the city lord had not come, there was an old butler of extreme bone tier keeping watch, who could really be relaxed, and every word and action was very reserved. Ling Han, on the other hand, was unconcerned. When the gifts were delivered later, it would be just about time for him to retreat. He had gained quite a lot from this trip. He had given Yan Jun a good beating, and had also killed Yang Ziqing, so he could be considered to have collected half of his debt. Next, the only thing left was to kill Yan Jun. Everyone knew that the city lord intended to marry his daughter into the imperial family. Thus, no one would be blind enough to curry Feng Ruoxian's favor in front of her. That would really be courting death. Everyone would behave themselves and be polite. Ling Han plunked down next to Yan Jun. This guy was drinking despondently by himself. After being humiliated in public, there was naturally no one willing to sit with him now. Yan Jun couldn't help but pale. In his eyes, not only was Ling Han his rival in love, he had also become a bringer of misfortune. The mere sight of him caused a chill to rise up from the bottom of his heart. The next time you find an assassin, please hire one that's more powerful. Ling Han patted Yan Jun's shoulder. However, you probably won't have such an opportunity. Yan Jun looked at him coldly. Do you think that you are all that great just because you are a little good at fighting? Haven't you learnt enough from today? Ling Han asked with a smile. Yan Jun was instantly rendered speechless. If it was not for the fact that his abilities were inferior, how could he have possibly been humiliated by Ling Han like this? Could not be helped. He was an expert in formations, but there were no killing formations in elementary-level formations, so there was absolutely no way he could set up a formation to kill Ling Han. No matter how strong you are, in front of Tuoba Tianhuang, you can't even withstand a single blow, he said. That's right. In front of Tuoba Tianhuang, you can only kneel. Qi Suifeng walked over and sat opposite Ling Han and Yan Jun. This guy's ears were quite sharp. Looks like after he had suffered a loss at Ling Han's hands previously, he had set his eyes on Ling Han. Ling Han looked at him disdainfully. I don't talk to damn perverts. Damn pervert? Qi Suifeng instantly recalled how he had grabbed Yan Jun's bum and dick, and his face instantly paled. Wasn't this your fault? Ling Han, you should be representing Xianxia banner in the martial arts competition tomorrow, right? Qi Suifeng didn't argue with Ling Han. How could a member of a noble clan have no self-restraint? What is it? Do you want to take a beating from me? Ling Han asked with a smile. Qi Suifeng instantly felt an urge to flip out. Why was this brat so hateful with just a few words? He forcefully suppressed his anger and said, I can make a bet with you. If you can block 10 moves from Tuoba Tianhuang, I will eat this chair. What do you want to eat again? Ling Han dug his ears, as if he hadn't heard clearly. Qi Suifeng was enraged, and shouted loudly, Eat the chair! Everyone in the surroundings heard this roar, and all of them bore strange expressions. What was going on here? What was going on in the head of this young master of the Qi clan? He actually wanted to eat chairs? Speaking of which, could it be that the chairs in the city lord's residence were made from special ingredients that were so delicious? Only now did Qi Suifeng realize that he had been tricked by Ling Han. A vein involuntarily popped on his forehead. How could this brat be so despicable? Without waiting for him to flip out, Ling Han nodded and said, Fine. I'll make a bet with you. If I defeat Tuoba Tianhuang tomorrow, you'll eat this chair. These words were powerful and resonating. All of a sudden, the whole hall became silent. Everyone was looking at Ling Han in shock. What was this guy saying? Defeating Tuoba Tianhuang? Had water entered your brain? You actually said that you wanted to defeat that godlike man? Qi Suifeng was also stunned. The bet he had made with Ling Han was only for Ling Han to last 10 moves from Tuoba Tianhuang. However, Ling Han said that he wanted to defeat Tuoba Tianhuang. Was this the same thing? How could it be that the stakes of the bet had increased more than 100-fold? It was absolutely impossible. He chuckled and said, All right, if you can't defeat Tuoba Tianhuang, then kneel in the arena for a day. How about it? All right. Ling Han nodded. Everyone shook their heads. Ling Han was too arrogant to actually say that he wanted to defeat Tuoba Tianhuang. It should be known that he was publicly acknowledged to be invincible in Meridian opening tier. Even the city lord had said that in a battle of equal cultivation levels, he was no match for Tuoba Tianhuang. This was seeking his own humiliation. All right, it's a deal. Qi Suifeng slammed a hand on the table. He only had to wait for one more day, and he would be able to see Ling Han's incredibly disheveled appearance. Hold on. He immediately realized that he had overlooked something, and hurriedly continued. What if you do not encounter Tuoba Tianhuang? When everyone heard this, realization dawned on them. Tuoba Tianhuang would definitely advance to the finals, but what about Ling Han? What if he was eliminated in the earlier rounds? This guy was now talking big to attract attention. As it turned out, that was what he was planning. How despicable. Ling Han was also surprised. He had not thought that Qi Suifeng would actually think of such a possibility. He shook his head and said, if Tuoba Tianhuang hadn't lost to me in advance, I would definitely wait for him in the finals. Otherwise, it would be considered my loss. These words were very domineering. Everyone was in disbelief. Where had Ling Han gotten such courage from? All right. Qi Suifeng smirked coldly. Now that Ling Han had said such words in public, if he went back on his word at that time, there would be no need for him to continue living in Huju City in the future. Miss Feng, this is a small token from me. I wish Miss Feng Feng a happy birthday, someone said, and delivered a generous gift to Feng Ruoxian. The time for presenting gifts had finally arrived. Someone was the first to start this segment, and subsequently, there were naturally people offering their gifts one after another. In this place, everyone had a habit, and that was when they received a gift, they would immediately open it to take a look. Thus, in this kind of situation, everyone would present gifts that were more precious. Otherwise, when they were opened in public, not only would they lose face, the host would also feel humiliated, which was even worse than not giving it. Li Ziwa's gift is a jade hair clip. It's said to be a tool passed down from the ancient times, and it comes with a defensive formation. Once it's activated, it can form a shield that can block the attacks of Meridian opening tier elites. Wanren Siyue gifted a broken sword, and it can still unleash some of its might. It's said that it can cut through anything within Meridian opening tier. Zhao Jishu gifted a talisman weapon, which seems to be blood transformation tier level. After each person went up to deliver a gift, their background would immediately be exposed. The descendants of the great clans that could come here were all elites, and every single one of them had very amazing insight. There were very few things that they could not recognize. Yan Jun also went up to deliver a gift. He was a formation master, so the gift he gave was naturally also a set of formations. However, it was not a killing formation, nor was it something like a psychedelic formation. Instead, it was a puppet that was only the size of a palm, but once it was activated, it could turn into the size of a normal person, vivid and lifelike, and could complete some simple commands. Though this was not very practical, it could still be seen that Yan Jun was very clever. If it was any other girl, she may be moved by him. Ling Han waited for a while, and when he saw that no one else was coming forwards, he stood up, walked in front of the birthday girl, drew out a bottle and handed it over. Pooh! A considerable number of people were already laughing. Though everyone's gifts would be opened on the spot, everyone would still wrap them up properly. This was a kind of etiquette and also showed their sincerity. Who would be like Ling Han, who had directly delivered a pill bottle? Hee, that was too casual. Feng Ruoxian couldn't help but smile, and said, Deputy Captain Ling really has a unique personality. It was unknown whether these words were a compliment or a mockery. Ling Han took it as a compliment. He said, Miss Feng, happy birthday. Thank you. Feng Ruoxian took the pill bottle and asked curiously, Deputy Captain Ling, what alchemical pill is this? She had eaten a considerable number of alchemical pills, but could not recognize what the 10 alchemical pills inside were at all. Ling Han replied, Everlasting Youth Pill. What? All of a sudden, everyone was shaken, and they all focused their attention. Those female guests even widened their eyes, as if they were about to make a move to snatch it away. However, everyone soon looked doubtful. The pill recipe for the Everlasting Youth Pill had just been completed by Mo Guahao. It was said that it could only be concocted next month. So where had Ling Han gotten it from? Fake, it must be fake. Hee. People nowadays are getting more and more good at boasting. Zhong Yangbi walked out. He should have come in when Ling Han and Yan Jun were having a conflict. Otherwise, Ling Han would have noticed. Brother Zhong, you're saying that these are fake pills? Yan Jun immediately asked. He hated Ling Han to death, so he naturally wouldn't let go of any chance. Of course, Zhong Yangbi declared proudly. Because he had just been given the recipe for Everlasting Youth Pill, Mercy Medicine Hall hadn't even begun to concoct the first cauldron of Everlasting Youth Pills. Thus, Ling Han declaring that the alchemical pills in his possession was Everlasting Youth Pill was definitely fake. Fake! Everyone was surprised. Ling Han actually gave fake medicines? I understand. Now, the most popular item is Everlasting Youth Pill. Moreover, it's also the item that women love the most, yet it can't be bought. Thus, he deliberately boasted, wanting to attract attention and curry Miss Feng's favor. This is a great miscalculation. To feed fake medicine to the city lord's beloved daughter. Isn't he afraid of losing his head? As they spoke, Butler Mu seemed to have awoken from his slumber and turned to stare at Ling Han. A sliver of killing intent flickered in his eyes, as if he would make a move at any moment. Ha 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 ha. I'm not too late, am I? A loud laugh rang out, and a middle-aged man strode out from the back hall. City Lord. Immediately, everyone hurriedly paid their greetings. This was Feng Zixing, the city lord of Huju City, who had control over the life and death of the city's residents. Ordinarily, as long as he did not do anything along the lines of rebellion, then killing a few random people was not considered much at all. Hence, this was definitely a powerful figure, and required absolute respect. Feng Zixing, on the other hand, was very casual. He raised his hand, signaling for everyone to stand up. He smiled slightly, and said to his daughter, "Opening your presents?" "Yes, father," Feng Ruoxian said respectfully. Every move she made would make one feel comfortable and at ease. Feng Zixing looked towards Butler Mu again and said, "Old Mu, why is there killing intent all over your body? Who offended you?" "Someone is delivering fake medicine to young miss," Butler Mu said darkly, his eyes still fixed on Ling Han. Feng Zixing followed his gaze and saw Ling Han. He couldn't help but smile. "Oh, what's going on?" Feng Ruoxian spoke up and recounted how Ling Han had gifted her alchemical pills. But Zhong Yangbi had questioned the authenticity of the gift. She was completely impartial in her account, and did not even include her own emotions. Logically speaking, she should be very angry that someone had given her fake medicine. Feng Zixing shook his head internally. He naturally knew that it was Ling Han who had modified the 2-pill recipes and completed the Everlasting Youth Pill. Thus, how could Ling Han possibly deliver fake medicines? He looked towards Zhong Yangbi and asked, "How are you so sure that these are fake medicines?" Zhong Yangbi said respectfully. In reply to Lord Yang, Everlasting Youth Pill was completed by Master. I was also fortunate enough to be taught the recipe for this pill, and as far as I know, our pharmacy has yet to begin concocting Everlasting Youth Pill. Thus, I am certain that this must be a fake pill. Yes, there was reason and evidence. Everyone nodded. In terms of logic, Zhong Yangbi's deduction was flawless. Feng Zixing smiled and took the bottle from his daughter's hand. Then he tossed it over to Zhong Yangbi and said, "Then why don't you appraise it and see what exactly it is?" "Yes, Lord Yang." Zhong Yangbi accepted the bottle, then swept a glance over Ling Han, revealing a proud expression. "Brat, you're in my hands now." Ling Han didn't mind. Ugly people would do all kinds of things. Zhong Yangbi poured out an alchemical pill. He first looked at it, then smelt it. Then his expression changed. Fuck, wasn't this the Everlasting Youth Pill? He had been taught the recipe for the pill, so he naturally knew how to identify the Everlasting Youth Pill. Whether it was in terms of color or smell, this was completely identical to the Everlasting Youth Pill. Can't be, right? It really was real? Zhong Yangbi didn't give up, and he took a small amount and put it in his mouth. This smell, this vitality, it was completely the Everlasting Youth Pill. Everyone watched, yet discovered that after Zhong Yangbi ingested the medicine, it was as if he had become stupid. He actually did not have any reaction. Haha. Could it be that it's a pill-inducing idiocy that would make one go into a daze after ingesting it? Someone said with a laugh. This caused a great many people to laugh out loud. However, the city lord was also present, so no one dared to laugh wantonly. Feng Zixing opened his mouth and asked, "How is it?" Zhong Yangbi didn't want to speak. He truly hoped that what he ingested was a pill that would cause muteness or idiocy. That way, he would be able to rid himself of such awkwardness. The problem was, this really was everlasting youth pill. It would only leave him with youth and fair skin. Did you guys notice? His skin seems to have become slightly fairer. That's right. It's even brighter. Everyone exclaimed in shock, especially the women. All of their eyes were shining. To them, this was possibly even more important than advancing 1 or 2 cultivation levels. This must be everlasting youth pill. Even if it's not everlasting youth pill, I'll still take it just for its beauty effects. Look, he's only eaten a little bit, and after such a short while, it's already so effective. If I take one, how impressive would it be? Practically all the women had turned into vicious wolves, staring at the bottle in Zhong Yangbi's hand, as if they would immediately pounce over. Even a young lady from a prestigious clan like Li Ziyue could no longer maintain her composure, and her breathing involuntarily became much heavier. It could be said that if it was not for the fact that this was the city lord's residence, and if it was not for the fact that Feng Zixing was standing guard here, a fight would have already broken out here. How is it? Feng Zixing asked again. This time, there was clearly a hint of displeasure in his voice. Fuck, he actually dared to make the city lord ask twice? Zhong Yangbi shuddered, and finally came back to his senses. He couldn't help but smile bitterly, and said, "This is indeed everlasting youth pill." Even if he lied now, only another alchemist had to be called to appraise the pill, and he would similarly come to the correct conclusion, and if he dared to deceive Feng Zixing, his end would be very, very terrible. Then why were you so sure that this was a fake medicine? Feng Zixing asked. This, Zhong Yangbi was rendered speechless. Previously, after analyzing for so long, he was certain that this was a fake medicine, yet now it was proven that it was a real one. How was he supposed to explain himself? He thought for a long time, then said, "Deputy Captain Ling has a close relationship with my master, and this may have been gifted to him by my master. Since you know that there is such a relationship, why did you insist previously?" Feng Zixing said calmly. "Furthermore, since this is your master's old friend, why are you disrespecting him? There is something very wrong with your character." These last words were a little harsh. Having been evaluated as very problematic by the city lord, would the Alchemy Association still dare to focus on nurturing him? Though alchemists were very special and the whole group was managed by the Alchemist Society, who would dare to go against Feng Zixing's will in the territory of Huju City? Zhong Yangbi's legs instantly became weak, and he fell to his knees. His face was as white as a sheet, and he appeared as if he had lost his soul. Feng Zixing casually grabbed out, and the pill bottle in Zhong Yangbi's hand flew back into his hand. Then he handed it over to his beloved daughter. "You have to thank little Han. This gift is very precious." Little Han? Everyone inhaled sharply. When had the city lord called out to a junior so cordially? From now onwards, Ling Han would no longer be an ordinary deputy captain of Shenqing Banner, but rather a popular person in front of the city lord. None of them could understand. Could it be that it was because Ling Han had offered a bottle of everlasting youth pills? Though youth can be maintained eternally, giving Miss Feng an extremely great advantage when she marries into the imperial palace in future, it can be bought every month. There is no need to place so much importance on it, right? I really don't understand. Everyone was stunned. This was too hard to accept. Yet Feng Ruoxin curtsied slightly towards Ling Han. "Thank you, Vice Captain Ling. You're too polite." Ling Han clasped his hands in return. He walked back and saw that everyone's mouths were wide open, as if a big bun could be stuffed in. Only Pan who gave him a firm thumbs up. Young Master Han was truly awesome. Ling Han had just returned to his seat when he saw young misses and beautiful noblewomen come over to buy everlasting youth pills from him. For women, their youth was draining away with every moment that passed. Thus, even though they clearly knew that the everlasting youth pill would be on the market next month, they still couldn't help but want to get it one day earlier. Moreover, the everlasting youth pill definitely couldn't be mass-produced. What if the supply wasn't enough? Thus, the first to obtain it would be to retain their youth first. Ling Han then said that the alchemical pills were concocted by Mo Guahao. He only had 10 pills, which he had already gifted to Feng Ruoxian. Coincidentally, Zhong Yangbi had previously found such an excuse for him, and without much effort, he pushed all the blame onto Mo Guahao. As for whether the doors to Mercy Medicine Hall would be broken down tomorrow, that was not something that Ling Han needed to consider. The wine had been drunk, and the gifts had also been given. Ling Han soon went to bid farewell to Feng Ruoxian. "Miss Feng, can I have a small request?" Ling Han suddenly turned around and asked after taking 2 steps. "What request?" Feng Ruoxian looked at Ling Han with interest. This man was truly out of the ordinary and very interesting. Ling Han cracked a smile. "I want to ask Miss Feng for something." When these words fell, everyone was stunned. Asking for something from Miss Feng? Hiss, are you teasing the precious daughter of the city lord? This was practically courting death. Could it be that you have not heard that the city lord intends to send Feng Ruoxian into the imperial palace? She was the exclusive property of the imperial palace, and you actually dare to have designs on her? Go ahead. Feng Ruoxian maintained a gentle expression, as if she had been trained since childhood. No matter what happened, she had to maintain and preserve this calmness and gentleness. "I want to ask Miss Feng for a chair," Ling Han said. "Previously, I made a bet with Qi Sui Feng. If I defeat Tuoba Tianhuang, he will have to eat a chair here. I'm afraid that he won't be able to find it by then, so I'll ask Miss Feng for one first." Gidge! Feng Ruoxian finally couldn't hold herself back anymore. She covered her small mouth and burst into laughter. The others also faltered for a moment before bursting into laughter. This guy really remembered this matter. Furthermore, it was just a chair that he would be eating, so which chair couldn't be eaten? There was no need for it to be one from the city lord's residence, right? Ling Han was obviously toying with Qi Suifeng by mentioning it now. Everyone turned to look at Qi Suifeng, only to see that his hands were clenched into fists. Veins were popping on his forehead, and he was about to explode in fury. "Sigh, what a pitiful guy. All right, please." Feng Ruoxian withdrew her smile and returned to that gentle, water-like appearance. "Thanks." Ling Han picked up a chair and left. Everyone was impressed. Who could bring something back with them after entering into the city lord's residence? Could only be Ling Han, though it was only a chair. Ling Han hailed a cab and returned to his residence. The little female attendant was curious, and when she saw that Ling Han actually brought a chair with him, she hurriedly asked what had happened. After hearing Ling Han's explanation, her eyes involuntarily lit up, filled with envy. Ling Han couldn't help but smile, saying, "No need to be envious. When your young master soars into the sky, you'll be even more dazzling than the princess." No. Huan Shui hurriedly waved her hand. "Huan Shui hopes to serve young master for the rest of my life. However, Huan Shui is afraid that she'll become ugly when she gets older. Young master will feel uncomfortable looking at Huan Shui." Ling Han faltered for a moment, then laughed loudly. Everyone had a fondness for beauty, and even the little handmaiden feared that she would age. "It's all right. There are many everlasting youth pills. Later, I'll concoct a few cauldrons for you," Ling Han said. "Thank you, young master." "Thank you, young master." Huan Shui was extremely pleasantly surprised. If it were any other matter, Huan Shui would definitely refuse. How could she allow young master to work for her sake? However, in the case of everlasting youth pill, she shamelessly didn't refuse, fully showing how much women valued their beauty. And there was really no need to worry about selling everlasting youth pills. A night passed, and Ling Han cultivated for half an hour when the sun rose. Then, after breakfast, he leisurely headed to the location of the martial arts tournament with his little female attendant. The Dark North Nation was founded on martial arts, so it was natural that everyone respected martial arts. Thus, a martial arts arena was purposely built in the city, which could be used for training during normal times. Additionally, it could also host various competitions. The annual martial arts competition was hosted by the city lord's residence, and there was no need to pay for tickets. Instead, there were free tickets that would be handed out. The noble families that held some power in the city would naturally receive enough free tickets, and for the general public, they would have to queue up on the online platform to collect their tickets as early as possible. Thankfully, the martial arts arena was big enough, and there were only 200,000 people in Huju City, so it could accommodate about half the population. Deputy Captain, we've come to cheer you on. Xianxia Banner's soldiers all came. They were special forces, and as long as they didn't have a mission, they were actually very free. Ling Han nodded. He also saw Yunma Banner, but those people didn't give him a second look. This was a very natural thing to do. Where's Banner Lord Lien? He asked. The Banner Lord has naturally entered long ago. Wang Feng giggled and punched Ling Han lightly in the chest. What is it? Do you still want the Banner Lord to wait for you here? He. All the warriors laughed, the very vulgar kind of laughter. Fuck, where had these people heard that he had some unspeakable relationship with Lien Shuerong? Forget it, he couldn't be bothered to pay attention to them. He didn't expect men to be so gossipy. Every year, a great many people would register for the martial arts tournament, and this year was no exception. If every round of the tournament was going to be held, it could not possibly end without 10 days to half a month, and the tournament time was only 3 days. Furthermore, there was only one tournament round on the third day, and that was the final battle to win the place of champion. Hence, aside from the 8 seeded contestants that would be drawn at the beginning, the remaining people would be divided into 24 groups, and the 24 victors from each group would be decided for the actual tournament. Ling Han had initially thought that he was going to fight his way through this competition. However, he surprisingly discovered that he was actually ranked as a seed. In other words, there was no need for him to fight today. He could just come over tomorrow and directly begin the actual tournament. Was this Lien Shuerong's handiwork? It should not be possible. This was a tournament organized by the city lord's residence, and Lien Shuerong was not qualified to interfere. Then it had to be Feng Zixing. Ling Han nodded. He had contributed 3 pill recipes, and the other party could be considered to be returning the favor. At this time, the prizes for the competition were also announced. For the top 8, 10,000 Dark North coins. For the top 4, a modified Meridian Exploration pill. For the runner-up, an ancient weapon, and for the champion, an amazing cloud fruit. The amazing cloud fruit. Ling Han was astounded. Really, whatever he was lacking would soon come to him. And he was definitely going to win this championship. He didn't care how Feng Zixing obtained this amazing cloud fruit. What he cared about was the result. After returning to his residence, Ling Han cultivated his spiritual power for a while. This was concerned too when he could reunite with the Empress and the others. One day passed, and early in the morning, Ling Han finished his cultivation as usual. After breakfast, he brought his little female attendant to the martial arts arena. Captain Ling, you can do it. You must not be eliminated before entering into the finals. At the entrance, Wang Feng and the others were still waiting for him. These people were really very free. Ling Han nodded. You guys should have higher expectations of me. No matter what, I have to win first place. Everyone exchanged looks and forced out a laugh. What is it? You don't trust me? Ling Han asked with a smile. Captain, you are indeed very strong. But if you compare yourself to Tuoba Tianhuang, I'm not trying to discourage you, but you are indeed inferior. A soldier stammered. They really can't be compared, the second soldier emphasized. Tuoba Tianhuang is a supreme prodigy of martial arts, invincible among his peers. The third soldier added insult to injury. So, as long as the captain makes it to the finals, he can only admit defeat, the fourth soldier said, rubbing salt into his wounds. Ling Han was astounded. This Tuoba Tianhuang's reputation was really deeply ingrained in everyone's hearts. There was actually no one that thought highly of him. All right, he would find out tomorrow or possibly today. He would check out the groupings first. Yesterday, the 24 victors had already been decided, so today, it would be the group of 32 people. The results were already out. Ling Han took a look. He was in the first half, and as for Tuoba Tianhuang, he was in the second half. Captain Ling, your position of runner-up is assured. Don't be discouraged. After this, Tuoba Tianhuang will definitely break through to the blood transformation tier. Next year, Captain Ling will reign supreme. That's right. There's no need to strive for temporary superiority. All the warriors were very excited. They believed very much in the strength of their vice-captain, but the prerequisite was that he had to avoid Tuoba Tianhuang. My young master will definitely get first place. The little female attendant argued for Ling Han. In her heart, Ling Han was the most awesome person. Yes, yes, yes. The warriors naturally would not argue with a woman, and all nodded perfunctorily. Ling Han merely smiled. What was there to argue about? Let the facts speak for themselves. He took a look. His first opponent was called Zhujian. Zhujian? Not a descendant of a great clan? Forget it, who cares? He said indifferently. What he didn't know was just how much Zhujian was weeping in his heart when he saw this list of opponents. He had instigated Yan Jun to target Ling Han because he wanted to get rid of a powerful competitor. He had not thought that, after going around a full circle, the first opponent he encountered was actually Ling Han. He was speechless. Very soon, the first round of battles began. Because the two finalists would be decided on a day's time, the elimination rounds would not be conducted one after another, but rather when the 16 contestants in the first half began, the 8 groups of battles would be carried out at the same time. Ling Han entered the arena, and Zhujian was standing opposite him. He didn't recognize Zhujian, yet he could see the practically constipated expression on his face. Was there something wrong with this person's brain? Begin, the referee said from the sidelines, and the battle began. Zhujian was extremely careful. He had heard of Ling Han's battle merits, and even an elite of 12 meridians had been defeated by him. He was definitely a strong opponent. He circled around Ling Han, but Ling Han simply stood with his hands clasped behind his back, acting as if he didn't exist. Looking down on me? Zhujian sneered. He was also a 12 meridians, and he had prepared for a very, very long time for today. His battle prowess was definitely astonishing. Fine, you are underestimating me, which would make it easier for me to defeat you. He suddenly moved and punched out directly. Just as it was about to strike Ling Han's back, Zhujian couldn't help but reveal a hint of joy in his expression. However, right at this moment, Ling Han turned around at an extraordinarily fast speed. Then, he stretched out his right hand to grab at Zhujian's chest, and with a powerful wave he was sent flying. Pong! He fell heavily onto the ground, feeling pain all over his body, unable to stand up at all. Ling Han wins, the referee announced loudly. Zhujian was sprawled out on the ground, his heart feeling utter despair. After preparing for so long, he had initially thought that he would be able to rise to prominence in a single day. In the end, however, he had met with misfortune. Such sorrowful results would make a hero deeply sad ever since. Ling Han went down to rest. When the first round of battles had all ended, the 8 contestants would immediately proceed to the second round of knockout battles. After about an hour, the second round of battles began. It was mainly because there were 2 people who had drawn out their battle too long in the first round. Everyone was waiting for them. Otherwise, the other 7 groups would have long since finished their battle. Ling Han's second opponent was the victor of that drawn-out battle. He and his opponent from the last round were both skilled in defense. If the referee had not forcibly commanded them to exchange blows, or both of them would be eliminated, their battle would actually be far from finishing within 1 hour. In terms of defense alone, the power expenditure was extremely small, and he was extremely durable. Begin, the referee said. Ling Han's opponent didn't plan to attack at all. He tried his best to shrink his body, reducing the surface area he had to defend. His strategy was to drag things out. When Ling Han's power was exhausted, he would be able to win. This was the defense style of the tortoise. Ling Han smiled and said, "You're not going to make a move? All right, then I will." He clenched a fist and threw a punch at his opponent. The man crossed his arms over his chest. Pong! The punch landed, and that person was instantly sent flying. Then he collapsed onto the ground and did not get up again. Ling Han wins. On the spectators' seats, the spectators were all surprised. They had not thought that Ling Han would actually win so easily. It should be known that his opponent specialized in defense, yet could not even withstand a single punch. What kind of power was this? This is this year's dark horse. And his power is astonishing and cannot be underestimated. It's possible for him to enter into the finals. Being able to get second place in his first time of participating in the tournament is truly remarkable. Everyone was discussing spiritedly. They were all very optimistic about Ling Han's strength, but not one of them thought that he had a chance of defeating Tuoba Tianhuang. After winning 2 rounds, Ling Han had already advanced into the quarterfinals. He only had to win 2 more rounds, and he would be able to emerge victorious from the first half. By this time, there were no more mediocre people. His next opponent was actually a woman. "Begin," the referee announced. The woman was dressed in red, and her beautiful eyes were as beautiful as a painting, extremely captivating. She curtsied slightly towards Ling Han and said, "Sir, could you let me have this battle? I have always had a wish, and that is to be able to see Lord Tianhuang from a close distance. So could you please oblige me?" Ling Han shook his head. "No," the red-clothed woman sighed. "This answer really disappoints me." With a shake of her arms, a crescent blade appeared in each of her hands. Weapons could be used in the tournament, but they could not be tools from the ancient era. Otherwise, the competition would not be about individual abilities, but rather the background of the clan they belonged to. Ling Han was unconcerned. After unleashing his power, the threat of any weapons would decrease greatly, and external objects were ultimately not as free as his own fists and feet. His iron fists were enough to battle the world. The red-clothed woman gave a soft shout, brandishing her twin sabers as she charged towards Ling Han. Ling Han didn't move, and he only threw a punch when his opponent entered his attack range. Pong, under the crushing pressure of more than 50,000 kilograms of power, no matter how many amazing techniques the woman had grasped, it was useless. Under the crushing pressure of absolute power, everything was nothing. The woman was instantly sent flying. Her twin sabers also flew out of her hands, one to the left and one to the right. Schwa! They flew onto the spectators' seats, causing a wave of exclamations. Ling Han won again. He had already entered into the top 4 of his half. It wasn't long before his final opponent also arrived before him. However, he was still defeated with a single punch. This caused a heated discussion among the spectators. No matter what kind of opponent he is, he would be defeated with a single punch. His abilities are very strong. Who knows, he may pose a threat to Tuoba Tianhuang. What kind of joke is that? What kind of existence is Tuoba Tianhuang? Even if there were 10 Ling Hans added together, they would still be no match for Lord Tianhuang. That's right. You guys are thinking too much. No matter who enters into the finals, no matter how amazing they are, they would only set off Lord Tianhuang's strength. Lord Tianhuang's strength has long since surpassed reason. In the end, everyone still agreed that Ling Han definitely couldn't shake Tuoba Tianhuang's status. The finalists of the first half had already appeared, and the finalists of the second half would only be decided in the afternoon. After lunch, the knockout battles in the second half immediately began. Ling Han also deliberately stayed behind. He wanted to see how this legendary Tuoba Tianhuang actually looked like. The tournament began, and Ling Han saw a slender young man with waterfall-like hair and bright brows. He had an indescribable bearing, and the moment he appeared, he became the center of attention, firmly capturing everyone's gaze. Tuoba Tianhuang. Without any introduction, Ling Han was sure that this was Tuoba Tianhuang. As expected, the moment this person entered the arena, he received a tsunami of cheers. The entire martial arts arena was shouting a name, and it was incredibly coordinated. Tuoba Tianhuang. Unfortunately, Ling Han didn't see Tuoba Tianhuang make a move, because everyone who encountered Tuoba Tianhuang would automatically admit defeat. Surrendering without a fight was a great humiliation for cultivators. But these people didn't receive any booing, as if this was a matter of course. Just like that, Tuoba Tianhuang entered into the finals without battling a single battle. In terms of difficulty, Tuoba Tianhuang had already crushed Ling Han. Then the battle would be tomorrow. Ling Han's interest was piqued. Originally, among 12 meridians, it was already impossible for anyone to be his match. Perhaps Tuoba Tianhuang would give him a pleasant surprise. Perhaps he had also unblocked his hidden meridians? After returning to his residence, Ling Han continued to sense the third extraordinary meridian. He had a feeling that breaking through to 15 meridians was close at hand. However, today's competition was a huge blow to the little handmaiden. Though she was filled with confidence in Ling Han, the atmosphere displayed by the whole martial arts arena was in favor of Tuoba Tianhuang's absolutely one-sided superiority. This caused the little female attendant to feel uneasy and filled with worry. If he lost, just how great of a blow would young master suffer? She didn't dare to think about it. Ling Han cultivated all the way until midnight. His body suddenly trembled, and a pleasantly surprised expression appeared on his face. The third extraordinary meridian had been found. Unfortunately, without the mystical power of heaven and earth provided to him, he could not open up this meridian and could only wait. The next morning, Ling Han woke up early and waited for the sun to rise. He immediately started to break through to 15 meridians. In just a few minutes, this meridian was suddenly cleared. The next step was to widen it. Ling Han practiced for half an hour before stopping. It was time to collect the prize. Ling Han was filled with anticipation. Just how much could the amazing cloud fruit increase his spiritual power? Would he be able to advance into the middle level? He did not consider at all the possibility that he would lose to Tuoba Tianhuang. Huan Shui, bring that chair. Someone is going to eat it today, Ling Han said. Oh, Huan Shui hadn't slept well the entire night, and she had 2 dark circles under her eyes. She carried the chair that had been taken out from the city lord's residence and followed Ling Han. Along the way, Ling Han and Huan Shui definitely attracted a lot of looks. Beautiful women were attractive in the first place. What more when they were carrying a chair? Furthermore, Ling Han's reputation was not low either. He had fought all the way into today's finals. Though he would definitely lose to Tuoba Tianhuang, he was still a well-known figure. And now, the two of them were walking by in this manner, so it was natural that everyone was curious. Wasn't he going to participate in the finals? What's going on now? Is he trying to express his disdain? Will he be seated as he battles Tuoba Tianhuang? It's a shame that I don't have any tickets. Otherwise, I would really want to witness it with my own eyes. Very soon, Ling Han and his little handmaiden arrived at the martial arts arena. Seeing Ling Han and his companion carrying a chair, the guards were naturally very surprised as well. However, Ling Han was a finalist today. To say nothing of bringing his own chair, even if he brought a rocket cannon, as long as it was not used in the finals, they would not dare to stop him. However, when they entered, they just happened to see Qi Suifeng. Fuck! Seeing Huan Shui carrying a chair, both the style and color was so familiar to him. He immediately recognized it. Fuck! Wasn't this the one from the city lord's residence? Ling Han, you really won't give up until you're faced with the grim reality. Do you think you have a chance of winning? Humph, humph. He smirked coldly. Ling Han saw this, and said to his little handmaiden, Huan Shui, smirk. Huan Shui naturally carried out young master's command without any reservations. She immediately revealed a cold smile. In Qi Suifeng's eyes, this had become a blatant mockery. Look, I've already prepared the chair that you want to eat. Hurry up and wash your mouth. He couldn't help but feel furious. Ling Han was despicable, but he didn't expect his maid to be the same. As expected, like master, like servant. Ling Han, I'll be waiting to see a good show, he said with a sneer. It was absolutely impossible for Ling Han to defeat Tuoba Tianhuang. Thus, he could only act cheeky now and cry later. Huan Shui, make a face, Ling Han said. Oh, the little female attendant set the chair aside, then made a face. Woo, so embarrassing. Qi Suifeng gritted his teeth. Ling Han didn't even speak to him directly. Instead, he used his maidservant to complete his mockery. This was really taking things too far. He would not lower himself to his level. In any case, very soon, this brat would kneel down and declare his defeat. I won't lower myself to your level. He strode off. Ling Han smiled faintly. He wanted to know whether Qi Suifeng would eat this chair or not. And he was slightly expectant. Huan Shui, let's go. The two of them entered into the martial arts arena. Huan Shui went to sit in the spectators' seats first. With her carrying a chair like this, she attracted the attention of everyone she passed. Did she think that the chairs in the martial arts arena were uncomfortable, so she prepared her own chair? Ling Han went to make preparations. Because there was only one battle today, there was naturally a lot of time. It would only begin at 10 o'clock. He closed his eyes to rest, and then someone came to inform him that it was time to take the field. Ling Han followed that person. When he entered into the tournament grounds, his surroundings were completely silent. There was actually no one cheering for him. Ling Han was astounded. He knew that Tuoba Tianhuang was popular, but not one of the spectators had a high opinion of him. Immediately afterward, Tuoba Tianhuang also took the field. This was completely different. Thunderous applause rang out, and countless men and women screamed at the top of their lungs, excited to the extreme. The difference in treatment was too great. Ling Han clasped his hands behind his back. This could not shake his heart. In the Genesis world, he had killed who knew how many prodigies, and in the end, the whole world respected him. This was the case for Genesis world, and it would be no exception here either. Begin, the referee announced. Tuoba Tianhuang looked at Ling Han and said calmly, since it's the finals, it's not good to end it too quickly. I'll let you have the first 10 moves. Make your move. His voice wasn't harsh, but it naturally had a domineering air, making people willingly submit. Ling Han smiled, and with a bounce of his feet, he charged towards Tuoba Tianhuang. Tuoba Tianhuang indeed didn't make a move. His feet moved casually and he quickly dodged 10 moves. I'm going to make a move, he said, his voice clear. His hair was black and shining, indescribably elegant. He moved. Xiao, a palm struck out towards Ling Han. His hand was fairer than the majority of women, smooth as jade, and would make any woman jealous. However, when this palm strike sliced over, it was like a divine saber that could split open the ground, possessing an indestructible might. Ling Han did not parry, and similarly moved his feet, dodging all of Tuoba Tianhuang's attacks. Very quickly, 10 moves had also passed. I'll return 10 moves to you, Ling Han said calmly. Hiss. Everyone on the spectators' seats gritted their teeth. Because this was the finals, sound amplifiers were also activated in the venue, clearly transmitting the conversation between the two of them into everyone's ears. Ling Han actually deliberately let Tuoba Tianhuang have the upper hand for 10 moves. It had always been Tuoba Tianhuang who would allow others to attack him, yet today he was actually allowed to attack as well. It should be known that if others spoke exaggeratedly in front of Tuoba Tianhuang, there would only be one result, and that was they would be beaten into mush. But what about Ling Han? 10 moves had passed, and he was still alive and kicking, without the slightest injury. Inconceivable. This was really inconceivable. Everyone had initially thought that it would only be going through the motions for this final battle. If Ling Han was smart, he would have surrendered long ago. If he wasn't smart, he would be beaten to a pulp. But now, there was a rally of strikes. This guy really wouldn't be able to stand against Tuoba Tianhuang, right? Impossible. Tuoba Tianhuang was only too careless and didn't use his full strength, allowing this brat to dodge 10 moves. And that must be the case. For these 10 moves, that brat must have used all the tricks up his sleeve. Lord Tianhuang only has to be slightly more serious, and he would be able to achieve victory in an instant. Everyone quickly suppressed their shock. Tuoba Tianhuang's invincible might was deeply engraved in everyone's hearts. Tuoba Tianhuang was also slightly surprised. He nodded. You are not too bad. Your abilities have surpassed my imagination. Ling Han shook his head. If you only have this little bit of abilities, you would disappoint me. Ha 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 ha. Tuoba Tianhuang roared with laughter. You are very arrogant. I'm just stating facts, Ling Han said calmly. Tuoba Tianhuang flicked his hand and said, All right, I'll be slightly serious. He moved again. Shua, he delivered a palm strike, and the force was released, slicing towards Ling Han, forming a terrifying sonic boom. This hadn't broken through the speed of sound yet, but it was already not too far from that. Hiss, as expected of Tuoba Tianhuang, whose attack speed is close to the speed of sound. It should be known that only a blood transformation tier elite can reach the speed of sound. So, Tuoba Tianhuang is the strongest below the blood transformation tier. No one can shake his position. Everyone was rueful. However, the speed of their speech was naturally inferior to the speed of Tuoba Tianhuang's attack. This palm strike had already arrived in front of Ling Han. Ling Han placed one hand behind his back, while his other hand clenched into a fist and blasted forwards. Pong! Tuoba Tianhuang's palm strike was instantly shattered. This time, the whole area was in an uproar. Previously, it could be said that Tuoba Tianhuang had gone easy on him and didn't use his full strength at all. But in that attack just now, Tuoba Tianhuang had already said that he would be more serious. Heavens, Tuoba Tianhuang being slightly serious hadn't dealt with Ling Han at all? Then did he have to be very serious or completely serious? Tuoba Tianhuang finally looked solemn, and the corners of his mouth slowly split open. His whole person exuded an endless fighting spirit. So you are actually this strong? That is great. He appeared very happy. I have always wanted to find a match that is my equal. Unfortunately, after I have advanced into 12 meridians, I can't even find someone who can take a blow from me. Today, can you let me battle to my heart's content? Ling Han smiled and said, Coincidentally, I haven't been able to encounter someone that can withstand a single blow from me either. How many strikes can you block? In a tit-for-tat confrontation, not the slightest bit of aura was lost. On the spectators' seats, everyone's blood was boiling, and their passion was also beginning to burn. Actually, what was so interesting about a one-sided battle? Only a battle between equals would be exciting. Come, let's go all out in battle. I'm still waiting to see someone eat a chair, Ling Han said. On the spectators' seats, Qi Suifeng's face was as black as ink, and he was incomparably driven mad. He really wanted to charge into the arena and battle Ling Han. However, to say nothing of the rules, even if he was allowed to enter the arena, he would not do so either. What would he do there? Asking for a beating? He knew very well just how terrifying Tuoba Tianhuang was. This was an opponent that even Tuoba Tianhuang had to become serious against, so how could he possibly match him? All right, Tuoba Tianhuang said with a smile. This was a smile of happiness. He had been invincible for too long, and it was rare for him to encounter a good opponent. This was a smile that came from the bottom of his heart. He finally assumed an attacking stance, as it seemed like the starting stance of some kind of palm technique, and said, Everyone thinks that after reaching the 12 meridians, that would be the end of the meridian opening tier, but that is not the truth. Aside from the 12 true meridians, there are also 8 hidden meridians. So, the pinnacle level of the meridian opening tier should be 20 meridians. Your power is not inferior to mine. You should have also opened up a few extraordinary meridians, right? Hee, everyone thought that I suppressed my cultivation level for the sake of this martial arts competition, and didn't cross into blood transformation tier, but they didn't know that I only wanted to unblock the hidden meridians. His words, as the loudspeaker spread them to every corner of the arena, instantly caused a great commotion. What, 12 meridians is actually not the end of the meridian opening tier? There are still 8 hidden meridians? Huh? I think I've heard of it before. It's called the Extraordinary 8 Meridians. Why has no one ever unblocked them before? Haven't you heard Tuoba Tianhuang say before that it's called Hidden Meridian? If they can be easily sensed, would they still be called the Hidden Meridians? No wonder Tuoba Tianhuang was so strong, and there isn't anyone that can even withstand a single blow from him. As it turned out, he is a 13 meridians, 14 meridians, or even higher. Hiss. Then Ling Han has also opened the hidden meridians? 2 monsters. To say nothing of ordinary people being stunned, even the members of the 3 great clans and the 6 minor clans were extremely stunned. They had indeed heard of the legend of the extraordinary 8 meridians, but they had always thought that it was just a rumor that no one could attain them. They had never thought that it was real, and 2 such super geniuses had appeared at the same time. That Ling Han, we can recruit him. He's the deputy captain of Xianxia Banner. He's from a remote area, and his background is clean. We can promise him a huge sum of money so he can be recruited into the clan. Immediately get the clan to act, and tie this boy to the chariot of our Qi clan. On the spectators' seats belonging to the great clans, those in power all issued the same command, and that was to recruit Ling Han. This was an outsider with a clean background. They could use the method of recruiting a son-in-law to tie him to their own clan. In future, it was very possible that Ling Han would bring glory to their clan. Ling Han looked at Tuoba Tianhuang in surprise. Tuoba Tianhuang actually dared to speak of the extraordinary 8 meridians in public? However, since it was already announced, he didn't care either, and said, "This morning, the 3rd hidden meridian was just unblocked. I opened the 3rd hidden meridian at the beginning of the year, and now I've already reached consummate level. I'm sensing the 4th. Tuoba Tianhuang said, "Since that's the case, our cultivation levels can just barely be considered the same, so I won't have any reservations." Pong, his clothes suddenly puffed up, as if they had been filled with air. This was because the mystical power in his body was surging. The power was too powerful, and a sliver of it was directly seeping out of his skin, which was why his clothes were forced open. His black locks danced wildly, making him appear to be wanton and unrestrained. Ling Han felt pressured. This opponent was really not weak. Not only had he similarly opened 15 meridians, he had also expanded the 3rd hidden meridian to the extreme. Of course, everyone's limit was different. Thus, even if Ling Han had just unblocked the 3rd hidden meridian, his power might not be inferior to Tuoba Tianhuang's. However, which of those who could unblock the hidden meridians wasn't a supreme prodigy? Thus, it would be difficult for Ling Han to surpass Tuoba Tianhuang in terms of power. In terms of power, he was already at a disadvantage. Furthermore, Tuoba Tianhuang had clearly become serious. If Ling Han still acted boldly and rashly, what else could it be but courting death? He was confident that he was invincible, but he would definitely not be blindly arrogant. Ling Han similarly assumed an offensive stance. This was the demonic monkey fists. It was clear that neither of them had made a move, but in everyone's eyes, a storm was brewing. Look, doesn't Tuoba Tianhuang look like a saber? This is really strange. He is clearly a person, but why does he give me the feeling of a saber? Furthermore, it is the kind of saber that, once struck, there is nothing that cannot be severed. It's the same for Ling Han. He's like a demonic monkey from the ancient times, with his feet on the ground and his hands supporting the sky. He's extremely terrifying. This is a kind of aura. Theoretically speaking, only when one's cultivation level has advanced to the blood transformation tier and their blood is boiling, would one have the chance to form this kind of aura. But now, these 2 people's fighting spirit is too strong, or rather, their grasp of techniques has already reached an extreme height, which naturally formed the aura. Someone explained, this was a blood transformation tier elite. Then, according to Senior, who would be stronger? The elite pondered for a moment before shaking his head and saying, "We'll only find out after they truly battle." Now, no one thought that Tuoba Tianhuang would definitely win. Ling Han actually also had 15 meridians. Though he was just a little bit inferior, it was already a real battle of equal cultivation levels. Anyone could win, and anyone could lose. "Come!" Tuoba Tianhuang shouted lightly. His figure charged out, and as his palms flew out, the force broke through the speed of sound, forming sound waves that took the form of sabers that slashed towards Ling Han. Ling Han was unafraid as he unleashed the demonic monkey fists. He also unleashed a fist imprint that was blasted out with accompanying sound waves. Pong, 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 pong. The 2 powers clashed, first releasing a heavy sound, which was followed by an extremely concentrated sound of impact. After a long time, the saber imprint and fist imprint disappeared at the same time. These two people are too terrifying. They have both overlapped at least 10 layers of power. Thus, after the first exchange of blows, the power continued to collide, like an endless hailstorm. A blood transformation tier was pushed onto the commentator's stage. In this kind of battle, even a 12 meridians couldn't see very clearly, and needed someone to explain. As far as I know, the Blue Thunder Fist of the Tuoba clan is only superimposed with 9 overlapping layers of power. Furthermore, Tuoba Tianhuang should be using a saber technique, and is only using his palm to deliver a strike. It is definitely not the Blue Thunder Fist. I've never seen Ling Han's fist technique either. These two people must have had some incredible fortuitous encounter. Everyone was both envious and covetous. In a situation when cultivation level remained unchanged, cultivating martial arts techniques that were even more powerful was undoubtedly the most practical way to increase battle prowess. And such a great secret was hidden in Ling Han and Tuoba Tianhuang. Ling Han actually didn't want to use the demonic monkey fists in public. However, he was hellbent on obtaining the amazing cloud fruit, so he definitely had to win. Then let's battle. Ling Han battled Tuoba Tianhuang. This was originally a battle that had no suspense. Tuoba Tianhuang would be able to deal with Ling Han in a few moves, and just as everyone expected, take away the title of champion. However, it was never imagined that Ling Han was actually another freak. The two great freaks battled fiercely. Who could predict who would emerge victorious? Charge! Tuoba Tianhuang charged out, slashing with both hands. Shwa, shwa, shwa. Multiple flashes of saber power slashed over. As the power was released, every flash was incredibly terrifying, capable of shattering massive rocks, because this power was as great as over 100,000 kilograms. Ling Han was not to be outdone either. He brandished his fists repeatedly, and clashed head-on with Tuoba Tianhuang. Pung, pung, pung. Everyone could only see dust flying in the arena, but the exact details of the scene were all blurred. 11 overlapping layers of power, 12 overlapping layers of power, 13 overlapping layers of power. The two of them were slowly increasing the amount of power they could stack, but at this time, even a blood transformation tier elite would not be able to capture their movements. Otherwise, that commentator would definitely grab his head and exclaim in shock. In truth, this was also a deliberate action of Ling Han and Tuoba Tianhuang. They had the belief that they were invincible, but their current cultivation level was still too low after all. If they attracted the covetous eyes of a blood transformation tier or extreme bone tier elite, how would they be able to resist? Thus, it was necessary to maintain an appropriate low profile. Though 10 overlapping layers of power was astonishing, it was only slightly stronger than the secret technique of a noble clan. If one took risks for it, the price that would be paid would not be appropriate to the reward that would be obtained. When Ling Han pushed the power of overlap to the 14th layer, Tuoba Tianhuang didn't raise the power of overlap further. "This is your limit?" Ling Han asked. "Just guess," Tuoba Tianhuang said. He was confident and conceited, but definitely not arrogant. How could he possibly reveal his trump card to Ling Han? However, Ling Han guessed that he should have already reached his limit, but just like him, if he channeled the cultivation technique, he might be able to increase the level of overlap further, and there would be a short burst of power. However, he believed that Tuoba Tianhuang's cultivation technique was definitely inferior to Brother Monkey cultivation technique. "I have to admit, your natural talent in cultivation is slightly superior to mine," Tuoba Tianhuang continued. "You have just opened the third hidden meridian, and I have already extended the third hidden meridian to the extreme. Even so, I have not gained the upper hand in terms of power." This was the truth. Originally, Tuoba Tianhuang should have had a slight advantage in terms of power. This only meant that every meridian that Ling Han had opened was slightly wider than his. Thus, after accumulating the slightly additional amount of power, he was capable of matching him with just 14 meridians to his 15 meridians. Ling Han smiled faintly. In a battle of equal cultivation levels, he was actually unable to crush his opponent. This kind of situation was already very rare. It could only be said that he had just begun on the path of martial arts, so the advantage he had accumulated was too little. Otherwise, if he had cultivated to the pinnacle of every cultivation level, and then encountered some prodigy, the latter probably would not be able to match him at the same cultivation level. However, do you really understand martial arts techniques? Tuoba Tianhuang suddenly stopped. Ling Han also stopped, his eyes focused on the other. The sand that filled the skies slowly fell onto the ground, and the two of them became clearly visible again. A strange light suddenly flashed across Tuoba Tianhuang's eyes. Strangely, white qi actually surged out of his body. It was not qi. Ling Han immediately shook his head. That was condensed water vapor. Tuoba Tianhuang's body suddenly dropped to the freezing point, affecting the surrounding temperature, causing the hot air to encounter cold, forming water vapor that was visible to the naked eye. Martial arts techniques? Ling Han asked curiously. This is called the cold ice saber, Tuoba Tianhuang said. This was originally a saber technique, but I've instilled it into my palm techniques because I'm most skilled in palm techniques. As for weapons, they're ultimately not as agile as my own palms. Ling Han very much agreed with the latter words. He also preferred using fists. This guy was quite powerful, turning a saber technique into a palm technique. It should be known that this was something that could only be done by a grandmaster of martial arts. He was able to do it when he was only a meridian opening tier elite. This natural talent was quite amazing. Take a palm strike from me. Tuoba Tianhuang sent out a palm strike. To be more precise, this was a palm strike that was sliced out, and power was released, turning into a white blade of ice. As expected, he had also instilled the cold air into this palm strike. Inconceivable. This is too inconceivable. On the commentator's platform, the blood transformation tier cultivator's expression was filled with shock, and he shouted, "What did I just see? I really can't believe it." Meridian opening tier cultivators can only release their power, but Tuoba Tianhuang actually instilled the power of frost into his power. It's like a dream. Even in the blood transformation tier, there are not many that can cultivate such mystical power like ice, blazing flame, divine lightning, and so on. This is an ability that belongs to extreme bone tier. Heavens! This is really unbelievable to our eyes. Tuoba Tianhuang is definitely not a prodigy that appears once in 100 years, but rather 1,000 or even 10,000 years. With his shout, the people on the spectators' seats finally understood what this attack from Tuoba Tianhuang represented. He had broken through the barrier to the cultivation level and cultivated a technique that only elites of extreme bone tier could possess. For example, the release of force was a technique that belonged to 10 meridians and elites above that level. No matter how outstanding a 9 meridians was, they could only feel powerless and sigh at their own inadequacy. But what about Tuoba Tianhuang? He had directly surpassed 2 cultivation levels. Incomparable, prodigious beyond description. Ling Han naturally wouldn't cower. He threw a punch to greet the attack, but while the force could be dispersed from afar, a cold air seeped into his bones, causing his blood flow and even the circulation of power to slow down. It was still fine for 1 or 2 strikes, but with the accumulation of coldness, it would definitely affect his battle prowess, causing his attack speed to slow down and his movements to slow down. In short, nothing would be as fast as normal. With a thought from Ling Han, the brother monkey cultivation technique had already channeled. Instantly, a copious amount of power surged over, instantly returning him to normal. And Tuoba Tianhuang looked surprised. He could clearly see that Ling Han had indeed been affected by his secret technique at the beginning, but he soon recovered. His whole body was enshrouded in a layer of energy that could not be seen with the naked eye, and it was only because he was so close that he could sense it. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, "Others say that you can channel the abilities of extreme bone tier elites, but I don't think so. You must have taken a shortcut or encountered some great opportunity." Tuoba Tianhuang was silent for a moment, then said, "That's right. I once ingested a 1,000-year-old ice spirit vermilion fruit, which allowed me to infuse cold air into my mystical power when I channel a certain martial arts technique." As expected, Ling Han believed that Tuoba Tianhuang was a prodigy. However, he refused to believe that a prodigy could overcome the gap of 2 major tiers and cultivate the ability of extreme bone tier. "This move is useless. Switch to another one," he said calmly. "Then let's return to the true essence of martial arts and achieve victory through pure strength." Tuoba Tianhuang released a battle cry and once again charged towards Ling Han. The lower the overall level of cultivation, the fewer techniques one could use. Couldn't be helped. For example, attacks that were imbued with cold air belonged to the extreme bone tier, and using blood and qi to form a murderous aura to oppress one's opponent could only be possessed by blood transformation tier elites, as well as explosive bursts of power through boiling blood and qi, which didn't belong to the level of meridian opening tier elites. At this level, there were only two types of abilities: external force release and the overlap of power. The battle between Tuoba Tianhuang and Ling Han returned to the basics of meridian opening tier, and that was competing in power release, and competing in power overlapping. "It's time to end this," Tuoba Tianhuang roared. His voice was so loud that many people on the spectators' seats couldn't help but cover their ears. He leaped up high and pounced at Ling Han. He delivered a palm strike, and it was as if he held a divine saber in his hand that could split open the ground. At this point in the battle, no one doubted Ling Han's strength any longer. This was a super genius that could match Tuoba Tianhuang. However, there was no such thing as first place in academics, and there was no such thing as second place in martial arts. Today, one of them had to fall. Who would it be? Ling Han also let out a battle cry. He channeled the brother monkey cultivation technique. 222. His heart beat faster, and more blood gushed out, speeding up the circulation of blood. It also allowed his body to explode with greater potential than normal. Break! He threw a punch. Pong! 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 In the exchange of blows, sharp sounds were endless, and Tuoba Tianhuang was sent flying. What? Everyone on the spectators' seats witnessed this scene, and their eyes widened in disbelief. Was Ling Han about to win? Tuoba Tianhuang turned around and landed, his feet on the ground, a trace of blood at the corner of his lips. In that attack just now, he had channeled his cultivation technique, causing his power overlap to reach the 18th layer. Unexpectedly, he had still suffered a serious injury from this attack. Ling Han's punch had overlapped power by at least 19 layers, or even the terrifying extent of 20 layers. Just how astonishing was their raw power? They both had 100,000 kilograms at least, so how could they not be injured after being hit by such a wave, or even in fact 2 waves of force? And this was still Tuoba Tianhuang. If it was any other normal 12 meridians, they would have long since been blasted into smithereens. The cultivation technique you grasp is superior to mine, and so is the fist technique. Tuoba Tianhuang sighed. I forfeit. However, this is because meridian opening tier has too few techniques. When you advance into blood transformation tier, if we battle again at the same cultivation level, I will definitely not lose to you. This was the honest truth. In a situation where their base power was equal, if one party's cultivation technique and martial arts technique was better, they would be able to blast out a stronger battle prowess and gain the upper hand. Who asked this to be the meridian opening tier? The competition was based on pure power. Ling Han smiled faintly. He could defeat Tuoba Tianhuang now, and as his cultivation level increased, the gap between him and Tuoba Tianhuang would only become larger and larger. A draw was impossible. All right, I'm very expectant, he said with a nod. Well, in life, one had to keep a low profile. Tuoba Tianhuang turned around and left. Since he had already lost, what was the point of staying? It wasn't until his figure disappeared into the aisle that a smattering of applause rang out from the spectators' seats. Then, it became more and more intense, and finally turned into a violent storm. Who could believe that the invincible Tuoba Tianhuang would actually lose? Did this signify the end of an era, the beginning of a new age? Ling Han! Ling Han! Ling Han! On the spectators' seats, everyone was shouting Ling Han's name. This was the glory that a champion deserved. Heavens! This is really unbelievable. Our captain is actually so awesome. The warriors of Shenqing Banner were also boiling over in their excitement. Before this, they had still told Ling Han that the second place would be assured for him. They had not thought that Ling Han would be so awesome, that he could even defeat Tuoba Tianhuang. Of course, this is the captain of our Xianxia banner. He has already opened 15 meridians, so how could he not be powerful? From today onwards, our Xianxia banner is number 1 among the 4 banners. Huan Shui was also so excited that her face was about to bloom. She clapped her hands with all her might, as if she didn't care even if they were smashed from the force. Her heart was filled with pride. Who told you to look down on my young master? Now you know how powerful my young master is, right? However, while some were happy, there were naturally some who were worried. For example, Qi Suifeng. Before this, he wouldn't have believed that Ling Han could defeat Tuoba Tianhuang even if it killed him. However, reality was so cruel. Tuoba Tianhuang truly lost. This meant that he had to eat a chair. What a joke. To say nothing of the fact that the taste of the chair was definitely not delicious. As the most outstanding heir of the younger generation of the Qi clan, how could he be so humiliated in public? He had to flee quickly. Heir Qi Suifeng, don't even think of running away. Unexpectedly, Ling Han's voice rang out, spreading throughout the entire martial arts arena through the sound amplification device. Don't think of running away, running away, and it even had an echo. All of a sudden, Qi Suifeng discovered that there were countless pairs of eyes focused on him. The majority of them were clearly ordinary people, but they still made him feel as if he was being pricked by needles. I made a bet with Qi Suifeng. If I defeat Tuoba Tianhuang, he'll have to eat a chair, and it'll be from the city lord's residence at that. Ling Han continued. I've already brought the chair. Later, Qi Suifeng will perform in public. I hope everyone isn't in a rush to leave and watch forcibly. The grandstand was too big, so it was naturally impossible for him to find Qi Suifeng among the 200,000 people in a single glance. However, it didn't matter. Whatever he said would be magnified. Qi Suifeng, you have to admit defeat. Come on. When everyone heard this, they were all amused. When others won the competition, they would either shed tears of excitement or dance around in excitement. How could they be as calm as Ling Han? He actually thought of his bet with someone first. It seemed like this was what he valued more. The little female attendant immediately carried the chair and jumped into the tournament grounds. She was now in 8 meridians, so carrying a chair on her back and leaping over the 6-meter-tall wall was completely no big deal. Fuck, a chair really had to be prepared. It was not an ordinary one, but one that belonged to the city lord's residence. Would the taste of the chairs in the city lord's residence be better? Qi Suifeng was the center of attention, so how could he flee? Though he indeed very much wanted to flee, if he fled now, he would never be able to raise his head in the Huju city in the future. A loss is a loss. Go on. An old voice rang out, filled with authority. Qi Suifeng's heart instantly clenched. This was Butler Mu of the city lord's residence. This was the command of an elite of extreme bone tier, so how could he dare to disobey? Helpless, Qi Suifeng could only walk towards the arena. His steps were extremely slow, as if he was walking into hell. From a certain aspect, that was indeed the case. However, no matter how slow he was, there was only that little bit of distance between them. He ultimately reached where Ling Han was standing. Eat, Ling Han said with a smile. Ling Han, don't go too far. I am a direct descendant of the Qi clan. If you insult me like this, the clan will definitely not let you go. Qi Suifeng said through gritted teeth. Ling Han rolled his eyes and said, At first, I was afraid that you would have indigestion, so I was thinking you could just eat a leg as a token. But now that you're threatening me like this, ho-ho, then there won't be anything less. Just finish it all. Qi Suifeng couldn't help but shed tears. He really had a bad mouth to actually provoke this bringer of misfortune again. From Ling Han's series of actions in the city lord's residence, it was clear that this guy wasn't the type to be afraid of trouble. Oh no, he had been trapped by himself. Eat. There's a lot. Don't worry about not being full, Ling Han said very considerately. Eat, eat. On the spectators' seats, those who were here to watch the excitement cheered. Qi Suifeng's expression was ashen, and he numbly stretched out his arms. Pa! He snapped off a chair leg, then placed it in his mouth and began chewing. Very quickly, a chair leg was gone. Since he had to eat, the faster he ate, the better. When he went out later, he would be able to throw up as soon as possible. How's the taste? Ling Han asked from the sidelines. Meanwhile, the little handmaiden had long since frowned. Just looking at the way she was chewing made her feel flustered. Qi Suifeng numbly handed over an armrest, and did not speak. The meaning was very simple. If you want to know how the taste is, then come and have a taste. Ling Han refused politely. A gentleman does not seize what another favors. Please enjoy to your heart's content. Qi Suifeng withdrew his hand numbly. Crack. He took a bite, and there was a crisp sound. Eat slowly. There's no need to rush. No one will fight with you over it. Ling Han patted Qi Suifeng's shoulder, then strode away. It was time to receive his prize. The prize for the first place was personally given out by Butler Mu of the City Lord's residence. When he delivered the prize into Ling Han's hands, he looked meaningfully at Ling Han. Young man, you have very promising future prospects. Work hard. Thank you, senior. Ling Han accepted the prize happily. Who knew if his spiritual power would be strong enough to release the Empress and the others after ingesting this amazing cloud fruit? He couldn't wait any longer, and was just about to leave, but he had not even stepped out, when he saw two people walking towards him, Lian Shuerong as well as Sun Jianfeng, Lord Sect Master. Ling Han hurriedly clasped his hands in greeting. He was very respectful towards Sun Jianfeng. Very good, you're very good. Sun Jianfeng nodded. He patted Ling Han's shoulder with a beaming smile. Sect Master, has your hidden illness been cured? Ling Han asked. It has been cured, but it still affected his lifespan, Lian Shuerong said. Blood transformation tier elites should have an additional 30 years of lifespan. Every time they advance a minor level, their lifespan will increase by another 3 to 5 years. However, because the process of blood change is extremely overbearing, it will severely harm the body. Thus, the increase in lifespan is mostly cancelled out. Unless Mr. Sun can break through to extreme bone tier within 20 years. Otherwise. She didn't continue, but her meaning was very clear. That was, Sun Jianfeng probably still had about 20 years to live. However, Sun Jianfeng was very open-minded. He smiled and said, It's fine. I'm already very satisfied to be able to come to the Dark North Nation to see the golden age of cultivation. Next, I'll leave it to fate. Ling Han didn't say anything, but he secretly swore that he would definitely concoct a corresponding alchemical pill in the future, helping Sun Jianfeng break through as soon as possible and resolve the crisis of his lifespan. After chatting for a while, Sun Jianfeng and Lian Shuerong allowed Ling Han to return. However, Lian Shuerong told Ling Han to definitely return to base camp in 3 days. They might be going on a mission. Ling Han agreed readily, and returned with his little female attendant. He guessed that a great many people would definitely come to pay him a visit, so he went to another inn. Time to take alchemical pills. No, time to eat fruits. Ling Han opened the chest. There was a jade box inside, and when he opened the box, there was a purple-black fruit inside. It was not big, and looked like a walnut. Ling Han looked at it first, then smelt it, and observed the indistinct veined patterns on the fruit. He nodded. He was sure that this was the amazing cloud fruit, and it was exactly as described. He no longer hesitated, and immediately picked up the fruit to eat. This kind of treasured fruit didn't need to be washed, and was naturally untainted. Ling Han had initially thought that this fruit would taste terrible. After all, he had eaten treasured fruit before. However, he hadn't expected that the amazing cloud fruit would actually taste quite good. And he chewed a few times and wanted to take 2 more bites, but discovered that the fruit was already gone. It was too little. Ling Han sighed. Come to think of it, he was actually a glutton. In a short while, he discovered that the effects of the amazing cloud fruit were beginning to take effect. His spiritual power was rapidly improving. Originally, the most his spiritual power could do was grab a pen. Could be said to be negligible. This was mainly used to communicate with seals, but now, he believed that he could grab 2 pens at the same time, and it was still in the process of improvement. If this spiritual power was slightly stronger, then wouldn't it be able to control weapons to attack? Spiritual power was shapeless, and unlike hands, it would be confined to the body. Spiritual power could be released or even attack from behind, which could not be guarded against. In the future, I have to be careful. Ling Han nodded. Otherwise, if he encountered a grandmaster of spiritual power, restraining him head-on, but launched a surprise attack from behind, he would definitely be hit if he was careless. The treasured fruit took effect, and there was no need for Ling Han himself to participate. However, he could feel his heart beat faster, and his head was also swelling slightly. It seemed to have doubled in size, and it was even increasing further in size. However, when he looked at the mirror, there was actually no change at all. This was the upgrade of spiritual power, compressing the mind, which deluded him into thinking that his head had increased in size. After about an hour, Ling Han finally calmed down. Aside from the fact that his face was hot, his eyes were red, and his head was still buzzing, everything had returned to normal. He tried to channel spiritual power, and the stack of books on the table instantly floated. It was extremely strange. This wasn't caused by the release of power, but from spiritual power. Compared to before, its strength has increased more than tenfold. The effects of an amazing cloud fruit is actually so awesome. This can only be said that my foundations are too low, and that is why there has been such a great improvement. Ling Han nodded. He was sure that if he had another amazing cloud fruit, his improvement would be very mediocre. I'll try again, and see if I can release Luan Xing and the others. Ling Han looked into his body, and had already located the Empress. Then he pushed forwards, wanting to pull her out. "Who is it?" The Empress immediately shouted in a stern voice. She was a fourth tier. Ling Han couldn't speak, and could only touch her lightly with his spiritual power, conveying his longing. "Ling Han?" the Empress immediately said. This was Ling Han's body, and if there was anyone who was strong enough to affect her here without being discovered by her, it would be Ling Han. Ling Han gave her a light brush, expressing his agreement. "You can't speak, right? You can't transmit your divine sense, right?" The Empress said. "If that is the case, then brush me 2 times. If that isn't the case, then brush me once." Ling Han brushed her twice. The Empress nodded. "You're injured." Ling Han brushed her once. The Empress sighed in relief. In other words, the world outside the door is extremely unique, and your strength has been restricted? Though it wasn't too right, it was close enough. Ling Han brushed her twice. "Big sister, who are you talking to?" The heavenly phoenix divine maiden walked over. Ling Han. "Ah, husband." The heavenly phoenix divine maiden was instantly excited. Although they had only parted for a few months, this was what worried them the most. This was because Ling Han was heading to an unknown world. No one knew what Ling Han was facing. Instantly, Lu Yutong, Li Sikan, and the other women all ran over. Ling Han's spiritual power wasn't strong enough, so he couldn't transmit his intent, nor could he carve words on the ground. He could only express these words with brushing a touch. However, this gave Ling Han a strong sense of confidence. He believed that if his spiritual power was a little stronger, he would be able to communicate with the people in his body. If he was a little stronger, he would be able to release them. Ling Han communicated with the women for a long time before ending it reluctantly. Now, his thirst for strength was even stronger. To let everyone out of his body, he needed to have spiritual power, but without powerful strength, how would he be able to obtain treasures to increase spiritual power? Ultimately, everything depended on strength. Ling Han considered for a moment, then brought his little female attendant to Mercy Medicine Hall. Next, he was going to Shenqing Banner, and he was also worried about having Huan Shui, a young girl, move to a place full of men. Moreover, this was against the rules. He had never heard of anyone bringing their family into the army. Therefore, he decided to let Huan Shui stay at Mercy Medicine Hall. After all, there were 3 types of medicines that he would be sharing the profits of in terms of dividends, so it was normal to arrange for someone to keep watch on his behalf. Additionally, as Mercy Medicine Hall's importance increased, the city lord's residents would gradually be more concerned as well. It was impossible for anyone to dismantle this place. This was a safe place. Ling Han brought Huan Shui with him to the pharmacy. After explaining the purpose of his visit, Mo Guahao naturally agreed gladly. He would take good care of Huan Shui. After staying here for 2 days, Ling Han naturally encountered Zhong Yangbi. Looking at Zhong Yangbi's expression, TSK, he really treated him like an enemy. Using these 2 days' time, Ling Han bought the ingredients, planning to create the blood transformation tear-killing formation as soon as possible. However, this couldn't be rushed for the moment, so he decided to deal with it in the Xianxia banner. After dealing with all kinds of miscellaneous matters, 3 days passed, and Ling Han brought a large bag with him as he headed towards Xianxia banner's base. He was very rueful. If he had a spatial celestial tool, how great would that be? No matter how he looked at it, the current him looked like a thief that had just committed a crime. Ling Han received a warm welcome after entering the camp of the Xianxia banner, defeating Tuoba Tianhuang and winning first place in the martial arts tournament. Awesome! After much difficulty, Ling Han finally squeezed out of the crowd and placed his luggage down. There were a lot of clothes in this large bundle. Ling Han continued to study the middle-level formation patterns. These formation patterns were really a difficult thing to deal with. After learning them, they would automatically disappear from his mind, but when drawing, he would need to combine a few or even over a dozen formation patterns. This undoubtedly increased the difficulty by a great many times. Moreover, the middle-level formation foundations weren't as simple as this. Not only did they have high requirements for the foundation materials, but they also had high requirements for the ink. Ordinary ink wouldn't work. At the very least, the blood of a blood transformation tier elite was needed. Furthermore, some formation foundations also had specific requirements for the type of blood. For example, if one wanted to set up an ice-type formation, he would need the blood of demonic beasts like the ice wolf and the frost python, and to set up a fire-type formation, he would need the blood of demonic beasts like the flame beast. The killing formation that Ling Han wanted to set up didn't have such high requirements. It was fine as long as it was the blood of a blood transformation tier. If there really was any requirement, that was, the fresher it was, the better. However, I seem to lack everything now. Ling Han sighed. The formation foundations needed for the middle-level formation technique were extraordinarily valuable, and more importantly, they couldn't be bought yet. Even old man Nyo didn't have any in stock, so he could only go to the Formation Association to get some. However, he wasn't a member of the Formations Association, so how could he bring himself to do so? Forget it, he would cross that bridge when he came to it. He will first familiarize himself with formation patterns and study alchemy. Alchemical pills could be concocted as long as one had medicinal ingredients, and seemed to be much simpler. Without waiting for Ling Han to begin his delightful seclusion, he was called over by Lien Shuerong. Not only him, but also all the members of Team 7. I have a mission for you, Lien Shuerong said seriously. I guarantee it will be completed. Tang Hai and the others immediately shouted loudly. Ling Han gritted his teeth. Was there a need to be so loud? He also said, I guarantee it will be completed. He was extremely out of coordination. Lien Shuerong nodded. It is rumored that a demonic beast, a 12 meridians, has appeared in the 1,000 Lotus Mountains. It would frequently come out of the mountains to cause harm to the townspeople in the area. Go and find it and destroy it. We promise to complete the mission. Tang Hai and the others shouted again. Fuck. Ling Han sighed. I promise to complete the mission. It was still very uncoordinated. Go on. Lien Shuerong waved them off. Ling Han and his group exited Lien Shuerong's room, all of them looking relaxed. Initially, killing a 12 meridians demonic beast would require a lot of effort, and there might even be casualties, Tang Hai said with a smile. However, with the addition of Ling Han, this is no big deal. Everyone laughed. Ling Han's battle prowess far surpassed 12 meridians. Even if the 9 of them attacked together, they probably wouldn't be a match for Ling Han. That's right. If Ling Han could have come earlier, Vice Captain Lu wouldn't have died. Zhang Honglang said very ruefully. Their previous vice captain had unfortunately died in an operation to eliminate demonic beasts. Everyone's mood instantly dropped. To them, their relationship with comrades in arms might not be inferior to parental affection or romantic love. All right, let's not talk about such sad matters. Just pack your things, and we will set out in half an hour's time. Tang Hai waved his hand. Yes, Captain, everyone exclaimed in unison. Ling Han's mouth was half open. Fuck, they were again out of coordination. Half an hour later, all 10 of them had packed their luggage and prepared to set out. Tang Hai led the team and the 9 of them followed behind. Meanwhile, Ling Han brought up the rear, as he was the deputy captain. Their target was Thousand Lotus Mountains, which wasn't far from Huju City. Going by their pace, they would need 10 days to reach their destination. Actually, if they weren't going to Thousand Lotus Mountains, it would only take 1 or 2 days by helicopter, but since the drastic change in heaven and earth, a great many mountains had undergone mysterious changes. Flying vehicles couldn't approach at all, or they would suddenly lose power and crash down from the sky. Falling down from a height of a few hundred meters, it was guaranteed that every single bone of a meridian opening tier elite would be shattered. Thus, if one wanted to fly over, they would have to travel all the way around the mountain. In this way, the time spent would not be much less. In that case, one might as well not go to so much trouble. He could just use his 2 legs and treat it as a training exercise. Of course, if Lien Xuerong and the other warships were dispatched, it would be different. They wouldn't be disturbed at all, and they would be able to fly steadily. However, was there any need to deploy warships to annihilate a 12 meridians demonic beast? They traveled westwards, passing through great mountains and great rivers. After the change of heaven and earth, the changes in the rivers were the most obvious. A river that was originally a few dozen meters wide could become a few miles wide. In fact, there were even some super great rivers that was a few hundred miles wide. Who knew where it had gotten so much water from, that it actually did not dry up? This was within the borders of the Dark North Nation, and the current emperor was incredibly wise. He appointed virtuous subjects, had clear rules and laws, and the lives of the common people were peaceful and well. Thus, there was definitely no one that was forced to turn to crime, and did a business that required no capital. Of course, there were also some that were born cruel, and there was no need for force for them to walk on that path. Thus, Xianxia Banner's mission was to exterminate these bandits, as well as the demonic beasts. They arrived at Thousand Lotus Mountains after a very peaceful journey. Ling Han gazed into the distance. The Thousand Lotus Mountains name was truly fitting for the place. Multiple mountains stood erect like blooming lotuses. However, this place was really too big.